Go ahead,
Ben, one
Ahmed.
second, Ahmed, one second. There's not. I know that we were kind of confused with the West Bank, but the shooting of that car was in Gaza. And I'll find it. But there was what the military commander, IDF military commander said. He said we are entering Gaza and we're going to hit anything that moves. And I'll bring it up
Okay,
now.
so
Okay, is that all right?
that is not okay. No, but that is not what she said. What she said is that there was a
Yeah. I
state
know. I agree with
sanctioned
you. I agree
policy.
with you. That's different. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Habiba, maybe you'd like to retract that or provide the receipt to back up your claim.
Oh
Thank you.
yeah, I sent the link to Mario.
I'll forward it to you now, Zev.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
Mario,
forward it
could
to you
you?
now.
Yeah, thank you.
So just going back to the Ismail Khani. So we are getting more people telling us that he has arrived to Lebanon, Hadi. Nothing official. It does seem to be done discreetly, but it is just more and more indicators pointing that he's going there. So not sure what meaning we can put behind this. Other information on Iran. We have dozens of Iranian and Syrians cross. So that's a bit unrelated. We'll talk about it in a bit. We have American planes have targeted trucks of Iranian factions on the Syrian-Iraqi border, according to Syrian Observatory. Iranian Foreign Ministry said Washington standing by the aggressor and supporting tension will lead to reactions from the people of the region. So it's just keeping it, they always intentionally keeping it vague. And the last one here is Iranian delegate to the UN said Iran will not hesitate to use its rights to respond decisively to any threat, attack, or aggression that puts its security at risk. Again, I don't think any of those indicate anything specific, but I think it's just worth noting. And Dylan, not sure if you can offer Virpas Gengaus his thoughts, but can you offer a bit of insight on the U.S. plans to evacuate non-essential embassy personnel in Lebanon? Do you know much information on that? I'm not sure if Brian you do, but I just want more opinions on how meaningful that is, because it's again action on the ground rather than rhetoric.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have a tremendous amount of information about that in particular. I'll continue to look into it, but it is the kind of thing that you would expect to see as tensions rise. I wouldn't say that it is necessarily a particularly surprising thing, right? Your people are there, you're going to want to get them out because things are becoming increasingly less certain in the area.
And there's also
it's
reports.
as simple as that.
Yeah, and there's also reports. Not sure if anyone can also help with that one. There's reports of Iran's influence in the West Bank, and that was even mentioned in the article that talks about the head of the Quds Force coming to Lebanon. They started talking about the concerns Israel has around Iran's influence there. Ahmad or Zev or Yosef, not sure if anyone has more information on Iran's influence in that region.
I don't. I'm just waiting for to be forwarded what the proof of the claim that she made that we're going to start killing protesters. Could
I'll
someone
send
send
it
that
to
to
you
me,
now.
Mario?
Hold on, I'll do it now. Habiba, did you send it to me? Habiba, can you
Mario,
send it to me on WhatsApp, please?
The West Bank thing.
Yeah, I have. I'm just looking for.
You haven't sent it to me,
I think
Habiba.
I have.
No.
Hold on. Oh, okay. I'll
Still
try
take
again.
it. What was that,
One
Hadi?
second.
I think Ahmed can add more, of course, to that. But I think the West Bank thing, I'm not sure what influence they're talking about, but there were before talks by the Iranian leader, Sayyid Ali Khamenei. He was talking specifically about the West Bank and how they should rise and all that, but there's no proof of actual Iranian army
No,
of
not
groups there
Iranian,
and stuff.
not direct forces. I think that Iran would not bring direct forces that close to Israel's border. That would be
Yeah.
pretty big step.
Mario, Firas talked about the fact that Jihad al-Islami, Jihad is strong in the West Bank as compared to Hamas, and they are one of the parties that Iran supports. So maybe it's related to that.
And they're closer to Iran than Hamas.
Yes.
I'm also looking into the Quds Force a bit more. So, U.S. Army Iraq War General Stanley McChrystal describes the Quds Force as an organization analogous to a combination of the CIA and the Joint Special Operations Command of the U.S. Just trying to see how significant, because the Quds Force is one of many branches within the IRGC. So I'm just trying to understand how influential, how much power they have.
The Quds Force was created by the leader of the Islamic Revolution, Khamenei himself, but it was not as influential as the late 1990s when Soleimani became the leader of that force. He basically changed its influence, extended its influence into politics as well. The previous Iranian foreign minister actually admitted that in a recording that was leaked, that the field, which is for diplomatic relations in the Middle East, is controlled by him. And there was a visit by Bashar Assad after the violence slowed down in Syria. The foreign minister was not there. Soleimani was there. So Soleimani changed the force completely.
Okay. And just going to the West Bank, by the way, through a network of loyal militias, Tehran over the past decades, according to Wall Street Journal, past decade has established a land corridor across Iraq and Syria into Lebanon and via Jordan into the West Bank, allowing it to transport troops, equipment, and weapons to its allies in the Levant. So just I'm trying to understand better the influence around. Ahmed, do you know much about Iran's influence in the West Bank, or should we get Faraz for that one?
I think it's better to get Firas. As far as I know, like Iran has no influence neither in the West Bank. You can argue that it has some influence on Hamas, but I don't think so. That's my point of view. I don't think it has any influence over Hamas. They only share one thing, which is the enemy. We have a common enemy, so the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and that's it. In the West Bank, I don't think they have any influence in there. They were saying like Khamenei or I'm not sure which Iranian leader. They were saying and encouraging people to go all out in the West Bank and in Gaza and everywhere. Actually, it's not just the West Bank. In Jordan, it was citing like saying like everywhere, go and have protests and do this and that. So I don't think there's anything specific to be mentioned here.
Okay. And just going, since we're getting back into Palestine, on the Gaza front. So has anyone looked into the video? Has anyone watched the video of the prisoners that were held by Hamas? So there was a video that was sent out. I would love to get the panel's thoughts on that.
The three ladies.
Yeah, exactly. So
ladies.
exactly. So they said the message they have here, the key we have been detained for 23 days, and they should have been a ceasefire. You should have released us all. We are innocent citizens paying the price of your political and military stance. On October 7th, there was no army, no one came to us. You promised to release us, but instead we are still in captivity. Your position means that you want to kill us. So it's kind of a summary of what they've said. I'm sure if there's any other key points that you'd like to add to it. But what are your thoughts just for the panel?
Me?
You too.
I first of all, I agree with Ben. I agree with Ben in that, anything that's under, kind of under duress should never be taken, kind of as a, pretty much basically as legitimate or as actually what the real expressions of what those people are saying. However, just kind of analyzing them, they did look. There was three of them, and there was one lady in particular in the middle who, and I'm sorry, I don't know the names. And these are, I think they're innocent civilians. None of them are military, and it's really poor to do this. But that one in the middle, I think she really was genuinely angry, and she was shouting, like now at the end. And I think what she's saying is what a lot of people in Israel are saying as well. So whether they got her to say what a lot of people in Israel are saying to kind of, make those voices louder, or this was actually genuinely her shouting and very angry, feeling that she's been, and I think that you would be, if you put yourself in her place, anybody in that position, they would feel that they have been sort of just left and forgotten, and should expect to be rescued by now by the greatest force, in the Middle East, and so I think I think there was a lot of anger in there, and maybe a lot of anger. I'm sure a lot of anger towards Hamas, but I'm sure there's a lot of anger towards her prime minister, and I don't know what her politics are either. But it was that particular. I did notice at the very end when they said now, the other two kind of joined in. So I don't know if that was actually a genuine thing, or was it just them that they were so quiet throughout, and then they just were told to join in or stared
I've pinned it at the top for the audience as well, just as a heads up. Okay.
Yeah, I also watched it, right? And I think people would be surprised to learn how good people can shout when you have somebody that's kidnapped you, who has potentially threatened to kill you if you don't say exactly what they want in exactly the right tone. And just as a side note, Mario, I am still waiting for the proof that Habiba, the
I've
extraordinary claim
sent
that
it to
she
you,
made, that
Zev.
he's
I know.
now...
We'll get to. I've sent you the link already, just now as you were speaking. We'll get to that. I just wanted to focus.
Let me check it out.
We could do it in a bit. I don't want to just quickly pivot back to that. We'll cover it because we have some time. But I really wanted to get some more thoughts on the hostage video. And do you think that
If I
pressure
may,
would work?
please.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll go to Yosef, then Ahmed. Go ahead, Yosef, and then Brian.
I want to say what recently a lot of people ask why Hamas attack now, and why I understand from this video is that the internal argument were a significant things that make Hamas, with all the traditional reforms that were in the last year, and Hamas see that the Israel is breaking it from inside. and you can see from this video that they want that Israel will fight the society will fight.
Yeah, I don't.
You understand?
So Zev, do you understand? Maybe Zev can help me understand it a bit better. Zev, do you know what the gentleman was saying?
Yeah.
No, I don't quite follow.
I
What?
understood. I
Yeah,
understood
if you
what
can
he
explain,
said.
please, Alex, that would be great.
Sure. So he mentioned that some of the statements, some of the maybe top ideas, top rhetoric that was said there are focusing on what's Israel been having in the last 9 months, which is the disagreement between a big faction in Israel with the whole judiciary reform. And they're using a lot of this in terms of the pressure. And it's very, I would say, wisely being crafted that way because it knows it will fall exactly on the faction in Israel society that opposes Netanyahu and has been opposing
So,
Netanyahu for the last
okay.
9
So he's
months.
saying is like they understand. So Hamas understand Israel's politics, and they try to position this video, position those
Yeah,
statements in a way that could cause.
that will fall on the right ears of the people that were opposing Netanyahu for the last 9 months. And but I also want to say something about that. And outside of Zev, I think I'm speaking Hebrew quite fluently, and it's very, very evident that this speech that she gave was not written in Hebrew. It's a very broken Hebrew in terms of nobody in Israel talks like
Correct.
that. The ending of the sentences, it's not the Hebrew, not dialect, but not the Hebrew way of saying things. Okay, it's, I think, the way it was written, and some of the people already kind of translated back to Arabic and then back to Hebrew to see it. It was written in Arabic, translated to Hebrew, a little bit of a what you can call a Google Translate problem, and it's very evident from the words that she's saying. It's not their
I'd be
words.
surprised. I'll be honest. I'd be surprised if it's their words. Sorry, Ahmed. I know you won't like that, but it just doesn't make sense. Why would you let your hostages say whatever they want, Ahmed?
So look, I'm not a native Hebrew speaker. I mean, I took some courses in Hebrew, so I'm not fluent, but I can understand some words. Um, I believe it's my personal belief that Hamas didn't need to coerce them into saying anything. Maybe they just told them like not to mention Hamas, not to mention anything that that's happening at the moment. Just direct it towards the Israeli public, to Netanyahu, and that's what happened. I think the statement was to a large degree genuine. They're angry. I mean, okay, they're angry at Hamas, but they're also angry at Netanyahu. You know, so yeah,
But more,
I can
more,
tell.
more
Like,
importantly, but guys, do you think, and on a serious note, do you think that video is going to have any impact? Because Netanyahu has dismissed it, so he said exactly. Let me get that statement.
No, I'll tell you exactly how it affects. Sorry to cut you off here. I already see on the Israeli more Twitter people what you call purple squares and some of the peace activists. They're echoing this sentiment and saying, "Look, Netanyahu, here's what they're saying. You're neglecting your position. You need to get him out." Blah 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 blah. I think it's a very small minority here in Israel that kind of takes it and echoes it through those chambers. But
So Netanyahu's office condemns Hamas ISIS psychological propaganda, expresses support for the families of those kidnapped and missing. He vows to do everything
yeah,
possible to ensure the return of all kidnapped and missing individuals. Quote, I turn to Elena Tropanov, Daniel Aloni, and Ramon Kirst, who were kidnapped by Hamas who commits war crimes. I hug you. Our hearts go out to you. And the other abductees, we are doing everything to bring all kidnapped and missing people home. So that's an IDF spokesman commenting on behalf of Netanyahu. So it essentially says, he's trying to counter it, says I care about the hostages, but did not hint at the strategy shifting, and I don't think that would change. You did say, Alex, that there's a minority that's making those statements, the minority that is
yeah,
that.
I don't think it's a
yeah.
minority. There's I think, like, you know, the Israeli public are but even before October 7th, they were hugely divided, and a lot of people were like, they did hate Netanyahu. A lot of people do not agree with what Netanyahu is doing. So adding more blame and adding more reasons to just to go against Netanyahu is definitely going to work. You know, I don't. I
Which
think it's going to be
exactly,
very effective.
which exactly is the reason why the whole statement was echoing those same points. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, I did
If it
not
was
deny that.
something
I'm
like,
saying it was directed in that way. I can, yeah, maybe it was
yeah,
like
but
probably directed in that
based
way.
on
But
what I'm
yeah,
seeing
but
here
you
in
can
Israel,
also feel the anger. You can also feel the
oh,
anger like of these people. Absolutely. So yeah, maybe
it's
it's
very
also
logical to
speculative.
feel the anger.
It's so speculative at the moment. So yeah.
And by the way, just as a moral standpoint, I don't need to tell anybody to say something. I just need to point a gun to their head, and they will say whatever I want them to say without me even dictating that.
Absolutely, this is what happened to the Hamas members who were also taken as prisoners, and they were also like it's very evident that they're coerced to say what they were saying. That's it. They
Yeah,
were saying that
Actually,
oh,
yeah, that's a good point.
we're having centers beneath the
I,
hospitals.
well,
So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
can I just
yeah, he
emphasize there's a lot that we
makes a very
It
don't
good
is.
point.
know with some of this,
Sorry,
though.
Brian.
Right. No,
Sorry.
yeah,
Well, I
go
was just
ahead,
gonna say,
Brian.
I think like, and this is one of I'm not picking on anybody particular here because this is a lot of people do this. It's very common. But one of the issues I have with a lot of the kind of whether it's Twitter or whatever else, there's a lot of people based on partial, very recently released information that will just start making complete conclusions with 100% certainty. They know this, they know that. I mean, one thing I know from a lot of the time I spent in Israel and from what I'm getting from my friends over there now, there's a lot of immigrants to Israel that are like picking up Hebrew that are kind of new. So as far as for Hebrew being off or not, there's a lot of people that are trying to learn Hebrew. And so I don't know if it
No,
was written in
first of all,
Arabic or
she has
not.
an,
I don't
yeah, but
think.
no, hold on. She has an Israeli accent. Okay, that's not an American accent. That's not a Russian accent. That's a pure Israeli accent. That's not an American accent.
No, I think
Okay.
no,
Okay,
no.
but you're
He
certain that
means
it's written in Arabic and translated. Like I'm just saying that people are trying to learn
No, no,
the
no, no, no.
actual
You
real.
didn't get. No, you didn't get what I'm saying. I'm saying that the way you frame a sentence, for instance, whether you put an adjective before or after, certain languages are dealing with that differently. The English language, which I, as you can hear, control completely, and the Russian language, which I also control completely, the sentence is being formed in a different way. The way that she was speaking is not the way Israelis, specifically Ashkenazi Israelis, would form a sentence. That's what I'm trying to say, meaning it was translated from something that frames their sentence differently. That's what I'm
Oh,
trying to
I
say.
totally understood you. I guess I was
Can I
just
say
wondering if it
something,
was
Mario, on
possible.
this?
Maybe she was an immigrant trying to learn Hebrew and trying to
But she has an
speak with a
Israeli
Hebrew accent.
accent.
No, 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 no.
But she,
She's a very Ashkenazi kibbutz
Okay,
type of an
that was the
accent.
only. Okay, I
yeah,
appreciate
no,
your
it's really
perspective even more
important to
now.
point to Brian, right?
But
Yeah,
I did want,
an
and
Amer-
I did want to add a
oh,
couple other points about the larger situation with the hostages. Is that I know people in uniform right now posing with pictures with their gun. They're deployed, and they're furious at Netanyahu, and a lot of people are furious at Netanyahu, and that was the case before October 7th. But if you look at the polls in Israel now, his popularity has cratered way below where it was when over half the country was against him with the domestic reforms. And I'm talking to many different people over there, and their priority that they wanted to see was the hostages first and destroy Hamas second. And if you watched the and this is again in English, but these are Israeli officials on TV, and sometimes hearing them translated from Hebrew into English. They were always saying they were dodging the questions whenever they were asked, "How are you going to get the hostages? How are you? What's your plan for the hostages?" They would just dodge it and say, "We're going after Hamas. Hamas should just release all the hostages." And Hamas might be lying about this, but in terms of the level of bombardment we've seen, Hamas has said, and I'm kind of erring on the side that what would they gain from right now from lying about this if it turns out that it's proven that they're wrong? They're saying that some of the bombardment has killed some of the hostages. And I'm not saying that I know for sure that's right, but when you look at what's going on, that's very possible. And that's a concern that Israelis I have talked to have shared with me when they look at what's happening in Gaza. Because if you think about the intelligence failure pre-October 7th, how can we be that confident that the Israelis super know where all these hostages are? Because they're bombing in a lot of different parts of Gaza. They're bombing in the south, not
No,
just the north.
the
They
simple
could
truth is
very
that we
well.
don't know.
Exactly. So what I'm saying, other Israelis I'm talking to, saying is that there wasn't much of a policy with the hostages. It was more about just go after Hamas and we'll deal with the hostages if we can maybe rescue them. And that's an unpopular policy because the Biden administration also, because there's a lot of American hostages, relatively speaking, they were asking him to wait with the invasion. There was a poll that just said 49% of Israelis wanted to pause the invasion until they could do more about the hostages. And thus far, Netanyahu has basically, and his people have been focusing not on the hostages as much as they've been going after Hamas, and those are kind of incompatible, naturally speaking, because if you're going to focus on bombing Hamas and bombing Gaza, you can't be prioritizing the lives of the hostages if that's your focus.
May I just add one counterpoint for that?
And again, sure, but just real quick, this is something a lot of Israelis I'm talking to are sharing with me, and they blame Netanyahu very much for the predicament that they're in. They don't think he's approaching this with a strategy. They think he's just kind of trying to do A, B, and C, and then maybe delaying things because America's pressuring him at certain points, and they're not confident that his leadership is going to get the maximum amount of hostages freed as could be possible.
So just a quick counterpoint for that. I agree that this question's being dodged in most press conferences, and I agree that a lot of people in Israel are thinking about what's the right approach here. Should we pause? Should we release? Maybe our bombing can actually create the opposite, as you mentioned, with some of them will be killed during those bombings. But if I can say something to the counterpoint of that, as you can see with today's release of the soldier, that you can see that the joint effort, specifically now the IDF being inside of Gaza, is not only to attack military targets or Hamas targets, but it also to gain a lot of recon and information and to extract some of their captives that we know about their position, and we have some intel about it. And the release of the soldiers today is exactly that. So it's a combined effort, in my opinion.
And I wouldn't disagree at all, but I think from one hostage being
Sorry.
recommended, it's hard to draw a conclusion that that's an overall successful policy or the right approach or not, and what overall effect that's having. I think it's great that they were able to get that one person, but we don't know if they killed 10 more in the process or not. We just don't know. And they actually
they also said, by the way,
real quick, they just said it's very strange language when they found the young German Israeli woman whose body was disgustingly displayed, and who knows if she survived that ordeal or not. There was a lot of people who thought maybe she might still be alive. The language that the Israelis used, they said they basically found a bone fragment and were able to identify her. And that makes me feel, if they found a bone fragment, that makes me feel like, I'm not saying that this is, I'm certain of this. I'm just saying that sounds like maybe something was bombed and they found the remains buried in rubble somewhere. I don't know.
That's your.
But if you just find a bone fragment,
Brian, just one moment. We got to move topics.
Full body.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go to Sami. But I don't think that anyone in this room is able to speculate on the cause of death if they haven't been
That's
able
what
to.
I'm just saying. There's different possibilities.
Brian,
Can I just mention one point? Just one point.
Just
The
one moment.
IDF
We're going to come to you in a minute.
The IDF.
No, we're going to come to you in a minute. There's other hands up. Yeah, there's other hands up. We're going to come to Ahmed in a minute. I want to go to Sami. But just in terms of the accent, right? So a native Hebrew speaker can absolutely determine another native Hebrew speaker. I think even Ahmed would be able to understand, right? If I said to him like this, Ani choshev she'ata tzarich liot beSuria, he's going to know I'm not a native Hebrew speaker, right? But if I said, Ani choshev she'ata tzarich liot beSuria, he'd be able to, he'd be able to know that I'm a native Hebrew speaker. So that being said, Sami, you had your hand up. Please go ahead.
Well, I always say that Israelis are always the best in making the wrong decisions, and Hamas from the very beginning, in the very first week of the war, they've said, we could release all the civilians, and I am with the release of all the civilians unconditionally. It's a big mistake for us Palestinians if we are claiming and saying that we are in the liberation stage and self-determination and independence. We cannot hold any civilians captives whatsoever. It's totally condemned and it's totally wrong. They should have been released from the very first day. I know I'm Sayed, you disagree with me, but look, it's a liberation movement, my friend. If we claim and we say this is a liberation movement, you cannot take civilians, like it or not. Okay.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
that actually,
you cannot take civilians.
Thank you.
You cannot take
Same.
civilians.
On a personal note, shukran. Yeah. No, Habib, shukran. That actually means the world to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's a liberation movement. You cannot take civilians. End of the story. There's no conflict where you have, such a cause where you take civilians. And if we are to analyze what happened in the first day, a lot of us maybe can analyze what happened, and maybe some of you don't understand what happened from this footage. Maybe some of us as Palestinians, we understood. Okay, maybe this is totally something that we could discuss separately. But the mistake I referred to which is how the Israelis are managing this whole fiasco. If Hamas would have said in the very first week, we will release all the civilians, and what we need is 1 week of ceasefire. They didn't say we need a 1 week of ceasefire, but they imply. Why wouldn't the Israelis just hold the fire, get those civilians released? If they really care about those
Who made?
civilians.
Hold on.
But
Who
I
made
don't
that
see
statement?
babies.
Hold on. Who made that statement, Sarah?
Yeah, in the beginning, a lot of it's Abu Ubaida, the Qassam brigade spokesperson. He said it on Al Jazeera on I think his second or third speech. I remember it, and it's already there in Arabic language. He said when the circumstances allow. Okay, that's literally what he said, and this means that there was a room to release the civilians. There is a room to release all the
Correct.
civilians because I think Hamas would bargain for the Israeli soldiers because Hamas, according to what they claim, it's almost 200 soldiers that they have, not civilians. I mean, mostly what they have is civilians, but there's a lot of focus. Sorry, soldiers. A lot of focus is on civilian house hostages, but the numbers on what was circulated, a lot of those in captivity in Gaza are soldiers, not only civilians.
Interesting, but maybe behind the scenes because that
Can I,
wouldn't it wouldn't
I
make.
can kind of speak to that
Yeah,
as
go
well.
ahead because it wouldn't make sense for me
can I
for
come
Israel
in
to say
quickly?
no to a 1 week ceasefire to release the civilians. It.
But they did.
No, we don't know what happened. The thing I don't know what happened behind the scenes. So maybe he made that public statement, but
Can,
behind the scenes he's making like, hey, we want a 1 week ceasefire, but we also want this, and that. Want this guarantee and that guarantee on top of the 1 week
He,
ceasefire.
he
Yeah, they
implied.
said
He didn't
they said
say
they
we
wanted
need a
aid
week.
and fuel. Yeah, that is good. They
Yeah,
said they
aid,
wanted
fuel,
aid
but
to
again,
flow
but we
in.
just
That's
don't
it.
know what else happened behind the scenes. Maybe that's all they asked. Maybe Israel rejected it for whatever strategic reasons. But I just
Because they don't care about the
I
hostages,
don't
Mario.
think
Because
so,
look,
man.
the
No,
idea
I'll
of
tell you.
spokesman, the
I'll
idea.
tell you, Ahmed.
Hold on.
I'll tell
No,
you.
just let me.
Hold
No,
on, guys,
just
guys.
let me
Yeah,
one
Zev,
thing.
Zev,
One
Zev. We've got to
thing.
let him finish. We got to let him. Me too. I want to disagree, but we'll let him finish. Go ahead, Ahmed.
The idea of spokesman said that like in the first week said like the hostages are not our priority. Like this is plain. This
Yeah.
is very
So
clear to
yeah.
everyone. He said it's not our priority.
Sure. So
So what else do you
look.
want?
My partner said to me, Mari, can I have this, and that? Can we talk about this, and that? I said to her, look, this is not my priority right now. There's war that I need to deal with. It doesn't mean I don't really care about her. Just not my priority. I don't think you can. I don't think you can get a bit out of context. Like, and I'll tell you, it's not. Put away the humanitarian aspect of it that he genuinely Netanyahu, the cabinet, whatever, care about the civilians. Imagine they're evil. They don't care. Even if that's the case, strategically, I always look at strategically. Even strategically, it makes more sense to rescue the hostages to gain more support from the voters. So strategically and from a compassionate perspective, it makes sense to care about the hostages.
Yeah, so we kill as
can
much
I just
people as
come
we
in,
can and
please?
rescue as
Can
much
I
as we can.
So
can
I
I have
just like to,
can I have a word?
yeah,
Can
I'd
I
like
have
to
a
just
word?
Yeah,
respond.
hold on, Ahmed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
after
One
Zev.
second.
After
Just
Zev,
before
Ahmed.
all that, guys,
Yeah,
I just
just
have
Who
yeah.
has
to
breaking
So
news?
before all
Yeah,
that.
go ahead, Adi.
Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
there are reports from Israeli media and Lebanese journalists that their explosions are being heard above Naharaya. Naharaya is near the Lebanese borders. So there's no yet confirmation what the explosion is, but I'm just saying probably a drone
But this is within
or something else. We'll
this
see.
is within the same region that's within the what do you call it?
It's
The
So I
Part
live
of Israel.
exactly 15 kilometers from that area, and I heard nothing here.
who's that? Is that you, Alex? It's fascinating. I like Alex. Hold on.
Yeah, it's
Naharaya is
me.
in Lebanon, no?
No,
Naharaya,
Naria
Naharaya
is in the north, is in the southern part of North Israel. So you have
North
Haifa.
Haifa.
On top of that, you have Krayot, Akko, and then Naria.
Okay. So and has
Mario,
that
can I come in
in a
for a
sec? Yes,
moment?
I do. Zev wanted to.
So basically,
She said, "Go ahead, Heidi."
reports are being heard an explosion. It won't be heard 50 kilometers away. There's no way that's going to be heard close.
15, 1
15
5.
kilometers, even 15, because some people live 20 kilometers from the southern borders, or 10 kilometers. They don't even hear what's happening on the borders. So it's just one. So it's probably like if a drone that's downed or something like that. So it's not going to be major, but we'll see what it is.
Yeah, and just to the point about the offer to release all the civilians, right? I think that everyone in this room would agree that what people say publicly and what they say privately on pieces of paper and demands often aren't the same, right? So, I and people are free to disagree with me. I'm not going to accept the vocal words of Hamas publicly when I don't know what they've said privately. Because keep in mind, in the opening days, they did say what we've captured is enough to release all our prisoners in all the
Same
Israeli
goes for idea.
jails.
So
Pardon
this,
me?
can I add to this a bit?
I'm saying the same
Absolutely.
goes for idea. That's it.
Yes,
Hold on.
absolutely.
So there are
if you don't
two
mind,
parties to really watch in this. One is the Qataris, right? Because they are overseeing the hostage negotiations. And they spoke very clearly to CNN. The Qatari PM's advisor, I've tweeted the link to the interview. They are the most authoritative because, again, the head of Mossad flew in to Doha to deal with the negotiations. The Qatari team, a friend of mine trained them. They're fluent in Arabic and Hebrew. And they are dealing with the hostage negotiations. And what they've said is that there are multiple parties who hold the hostages. It's not just Hamas, it's also PIG and some other groups. There's no agreement on the numbers. So the Israelis have one number, the Qataris have another, the Hamas has another number. And then the other thing is the Washington Post did a really comprehensive look into it as well. But the Qataris have said it again that the movement of the and all the bombing is imperiling the lives. They use the word imperiling the lives of the hostages because over 50 of them have died now in the strikes. And then
Well,
I sent
that's
the
an
link to Mario.
allegation. Just quickly,
Well,
that's
we
an
don't know for
allegation,
sure.
Yeah,
right?
go
That's
ahead.
their claim.
We don't know for sure.
No, well, so I mean, the Qataris. It's not that they're disinterested, but they are working for peace. That's I mean, they've got credibility, and they were thanked by the US side and the UN. So
Right,
and
but no,
Guterres
just
thanked them
just
for
a
their
quick
efforts as
correction,
well.
right? Just quick
Yeah.
correction, right? So there was a claim that 50
Mhm.
hostages had been killed by airstrikes, but we have no way. Nobody has any way of verifying. It might be
Yeah, fair
true.
enough. Yeah,
Absolutely.
fair
Yeah.
enough. But I
Yeah.
think that both sides have accepted that that might be the case. I think you've seen signals from the US as well, and the Israeli side
No,
that
I
that
don't
might be the
think you've
case.
seen any. I don't think you've seen signals from the U.S. that is the case because the U.S. has also rejected calls for a ceasefire.
No, we're not talking about a ceasefire. We're talking
No,
about how
I
They're
know
many
what you're
asking for a
hostages
talking
have been
about, but
pause, though.
killed.
They're
I
asking
have
for a
not
pause,
heard.
though.
Yeah, I have
Okay,
not heard. I have not
fair
heard
enough.
anyone from the American administration or any military analysts from the U.S. say that yes, indeed, 50 hostages were killed in an airstrike. Right. In
Mm.
fact, I think quite the opposite. Right. I mean, if we're going to just go a little bit more macro, Biden said, "I can't trust. I don't have any confidence," or I forget the exact phrasing he used. Right. But the number of civilian victims in the Palestinians, which is clearly high. Right. So there's
Mhm.
mixed messaging going on for sure. But I don't think I've heard
Yeah,
any
that's
let's
true.
not
U.S.
start that now. No, no,
That
no.
is true. But the
Because the
one thing I
WHO,
would
No, no.
say is the Israeli economy minister and ABC reported it. I sent the link to Mario. He reported, and he said himself, hostages, and I quote, direct quote, hostages and civilian casualties will be secondary to destroying Hamas.
Correct.
Yeah,
And
right.
can
I
can I
agree
please
with
come
that. And
in
I
now?
agree
Because I've
with
been
that. I
waiting.
agree with that.
Can you let
Ben,
Ahmed speak?
can I
Let you
come in,
guys.
please?
Yes,
Can I
go
come
ahead.
in?
Sure, Ahmed.
Right. Okay. So, did anybody watch the press conference today? Netanyahu and fellow
Yes.
war cabinet ministers. If anybody did, I watched it live, and it's kind of my job. I've been doing this for 20 years. My job is to look at people and see what they look like and see how they come across. And I do this in prisons, in courts, and police stations, as well as in hospitals. And Netanyahu looked not well at all. He did not look confident. And I've seen him many times before. I know what he usually looks like. And I think there's serious trouble for him, even with his colleagues and with the IDF and with the Israeli public and with the calls for prosecuting him for war crimes internationally. He did not look, I mean, he looked so much older today, and he would even sit down and then come back up again to answer questions. And the way he was looking, the way he was speaking is not the Netanyahu that we are used to. So I think that this deplorable, what's the word, parading, because that's what it is, of hostages, because that's what it is parading, and it's deplorable. They are focusing on that, and they are focusing on Netanyahu. Whether they read it, whether they were told it, whether it is, but it was deliberate. I totally agree. But Netanyahu at the moment is not in a good place, not good frame of mind at all. And I don't know how long this is going to last. Later on, by the way, guys, I really would hope that with the next 10, 15 minutes, because I'm going to stop now because I don't like going on and on. If we could please talk about the 2.3 million people in Gaza, because I've got a lot of stuff in terms of medical issues going on big time, because we never talk about them. And it's like we're talking about a
I think we should
chessboard.
right now, if we can, briefly. I think
Okay.
that's actually a very good. Yeah, if that's
I
okay,
speak about
Mario.
the
I
medical
think it's a
issues?
good point.
Can I say
Absolutely.
thank you? Thank you. I'd like to speak about some medical issues. So on the 7th of October, and I know I've said this before, on the 7th of October, and I've got it pinned up as my tweet, 7th of October, I asked how many doctors will Israel kill this time round. I honestly can't keep up, sadly, with the number of doctors, me saying this as a doctor, who are being killed. So today, an anaesthetist was killed. Sorry, an orthopedic surgeon was killed. Yesterday, an anaesthetist was killed, both after they had finished their shifts with their families, targeted in their homes. I think the number of doctors now has gone up to about 30 something, and the number of healthcare workers altogether is over 100. They are disproportionately targeted, and they're in their homes. Now, I had this doctor in Gaza who sent me a message yesterday, which I've also tweeted. Of course, I always withhold his identity because I'm worried that he also will be targeted. And he said the following. And he doesn't even know that I'm on Twitter and Spaces and all that. He has no idea because he very rarely gets time or charge or signal to be able to send me stuff. And what he said was this. He said that people the injured were waiting for days to be operated on, and there were, maggots, worms in their wounds by the time they get operated on. There was very little anesthesia. Somebody else from an organization has said that pregnant women are having emergency cesarean sections without anesthesia, that there was very little water and very little electricity. So in the burns unit, you need air conditioning for the patients who've got massive burns. There is no air conditioning, and that they are rationing pain relief, and that all these injured, people who are dead, okay? But those who are injured have to stay in pain because there's not enough pain relief. Now, you can bomb Gaza, or by the way, I'm waiting at bakeries for 4 hours, okay? Now, you can bomb Gaza as much as you like, carpet bombing, everything, etc. But to stop anesthetic agents, that is what was Hamas going to use, anesthetic agents and medications. So we say, yeah, they might use it, for their own. Is that what you're saying? That 2 million people have to be without medical supplies. This should be no conditions at all on this. And it should be supplied this minute, now, and no more. Oh, no, we're not supplying it because Israel has the right to defend itself. And it looks really bad for Israel when they do this. It's really, really bad. And I think it's even worse than the bombing. And I'll stop there. And thanks, Ben, for giving me that chance to speak about it.
Does anyone?
Can I
We should
come in,
also
Ben?
probably talk about the
2
Turkish
seconds.
hospital
Actually,
that was
real
Hold,
quick
attacked.
guys,
about
guys.
this for
No,
I want
I
Brian.
think that's a very
Yeah, I actually want Brian to jump on this.
absolutely.
Brian, what are your thoughts on what Ahmed mentioned?
Thanks so much. And just real quick, BZ, thanks for clarifying and the other fellow with the language stuff. I was putting out there as an idea, but I was asking as well. So thank you for that. But yeah, I've really written in detail about this, and I have a background in humanitarian aid work and international law when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I just feel like this is the biggest own goal part of Israel's, if you'll forgive the sports analogy, of Israel's whole approach to this, because they could be engaging in a much more targeted. I'm not saying it's wholly indiscriminate. People throw those terms around a lot, but I think it could be a lot more discriminate, and they could be really actively ensuring that the amount of humanitarian supplies that are needed are getting in there. And the people of Gaza would actually, they're not going to like being bombed by any means, but they would appreciate that. They would actually see that Israel is not just saying we're the most humane military in the world, but that they're actually doing a lot to ensure that the people that are wounded and in hospitals are not, like you're saying, no anesthesia. I mean, and they had to shut down the cancer ward. These are people. There are babies on incubators. And then when the Israeli officials are asked about this, when this was brought up at the UN, and I know Israelis don't like the UN, but when these questions are brought up to Israeli officials, almost invariably the response is, "Oh, it's all on Hamas," which is false because under international law, all parties to the conflict are equally responsible for civilian well-being. And frankly, Israel's always trying to say, and I'm not saying they're not better than Hamas, but they're always trying to say we're so much better than Hamas. But then we're basically saying, well, we're not going to follow international law because we're really upset because there were babies that were decapitated. Like, they will literally bring up the baby decapitation thing. I know there's some dispute about to what degree. There's definitely a lot of babies that were killed. But when someone says, why aren't you following international law? Why are you blockading supplies to civilians? And the response is, they killed our babies. Clearly, and again, I understand this on a human level, clearly when you think about the people that are populating Netanyahu's government, these are right-wing nationalists, pretty extreme folks. They're thinking with their emotions in a lot of ways, and they're just thinking not about humanitarian law. They're not trying to blow up and just kill civilians for the fun of it, but they're just like, you know what, they really haven't earned that level of in their mind. They're just clearly not following basic things that would allow them to tell the world and have people take them seriously, because again, they keep saying what they say, but deeds are what really matters. And you could even get helicopters dropping in anesthesia. It's not that hard. You could drop them off on the hospital roof. UN helicopters could be let in to do that. It doesn't. Everyone's talking, oh, the Rafah cross. So you can fly stuff in. You can airdrop. The Berlin airlift happened in the 1940s, for goodness sake. So the idea that the only option is if the Egyptians, it's all on them, and I'm sorry, it's not. They're not a party to this conflict. And that's a very specific proposal I want to get to, because I know people are going to say it's ridiculous, but when you consider the history, there's no way Egypt's going to let people in, because they think, and this goes to what we talked about yesterday, there's actually the intelligence ministry, which isn't the biggest intelligence apparatus, but it's a part of the government. They do have a plan that they're pushing to displace all the Gazans. This was confirmed by Israeli media, 2 different Israeli media outlets today. It comes officially from the government. They got confirmation from the ministry. Now, it's a proposal. It's not something that we know the status of and how much it's being considered, but the fact is part of the Israeli government is pushing to evict and ethnically cleanse all of Gaza. This is the word that the Israeli media itself used, right? So the idea that they're just going to go to Gaza, I think it's on Israel to allow all the women and children, just like the U.S. did with Fallujah, out in Israel, and have PA security, UN security work together, have an Israeli cordon around some of these camps right on the border of Gaza. So no one's bombing anybody there. You let all the women and children and elderly out into several camps there. The UN's really good at doing that. The terrain there is way more hospitable than the Sinai desert that's not adjacent to ISIS, which is in the Sinai Peninsula, and Egypt can't even govern properly. So if Israel did that, and they did that before they started bombing, and then they started bombing after they told people to leave north of Gaza, I just think the whole world would be more on Israel's side, not overall necessarily, but they would have a lot more goodwill. And the way Israel has conducted this, it's rooting its own goodwill to conduct its own operation successfully, because I'm rooting for Israel to beat Hamas. Not letting civilians out, keeping them all penned in, trying to take 1.1 million and move them on top of 2.2 million in half of the space is insanity. I'm sorry. And especially with not allowing the basic supplies that people need, and especially the medical situation. That's why I had another part of my plan was for them to coordinate very specifically with each and every hospital to try and create safe zones around the hospital. And if Hamas starts attacking the hospitals, then guess who looks like the total jerks? Hamas. But if Israel's in there surrounding the hospitals, keeping them safe from attacks, making sure they're not bombed, getting them supplies, they look like heroes, and they're literally saving lives.
Actually, John, you came up at a perfect time. I'm not sure you came up because you heard what Brian is saying, but I'd love you.
Thank you, by the
way. Not
way,
at all. I think it's points we've discussed before. Again, I always try to take emotions and compassion out of it, because that's something we cannot determine. I always try to look at strategy and incentives. Listening to Brian make those points, John, from a strategic perspective, I tend to agree with him in most cases. Like, from a strategic perspective, Israel could do a lot of things differently to garner more international support. And again, I'm putting the humanitarian aspect aside. Is there anything we're overlooking, John? Dylan, maybe you can add to it as well, from a military perspective?
I mean, I agree with many of the points. There's a lot that could be done. I mean, in war is a contest of will, and there are multiple aspects. Yes, more could be done to help with the humanitarian crisis. Like Brian said, it is on both responsibilities. There are some kind of complications with some of the things that were said on how easy it could be to Israel to take a different approach to it, both politically, even militarily. Even some of the ideas of what's happened in the past, like, okay, one of the most controlled evacuations of modern times, Second Battle of Fallujah, there were refugee camps set up, but the people would stop at them. There wasn't services. There wasn't a big enough UN or third-party organization there. So they run out of water, and most people left those camps during the battle. So I mean, it's not as, I agree, more could be done. But it is a very
How John?
complex
How can you tell
situation.
us? Can you tell us how the Battle of Fallujah was? And can you tell us more about that evacuation? A lot of us were not watching closely the Iraq War. Can you make some comparisons to Fallujah?
And
I
real
mean,
quick
no,
after John, I met someone who wrote a book about this. So after he's done, I'd
Yeah,
like to
absolutely,
jump in
absolutely.
on that.
And
So
as I
please.
see George and Sam down in the audience, I'll bring you guys up in a bit. Go ahead, John.
yeah, sure. And again, I acknowledge where I don't know as much. Where I did massive amounts of research on the military perspective, really the U.S. and Iraqi military perspective. But really, it was like there was some analogy where Fallujah was left as a sanctuary for 6 months of enemy capabilities, but there was actually a blockade, checkpoints around the city for a very long time, searching everything going in and out. So once the evacuations were made, and basically, I don't know if the flyers actually said it, but like in the interviews, the U.S. personnel said if they were left in the city, there was a 90% chance that those left were enemy. And some of the flyers were as bold as that, as if you stay, you're enemy, which they still discriminately went in. But the context is different, where they had the ability to, although everybody talks about a blockade, a siege, it's not possible to siege and control even Gaza City like Fallujah was, right? Fallujah is a nodal city surrounded, and the U.S. forces were able to surround it quickly and control the main routes, like Route 1 and others going in and out of the city. So there's that militarily about the control. And then they called for the evacuation, which is really interesting about the evacuation is that a lot of people were searched on the way out, right? So that's the other complication with conducting an evacuation and being able to help civilian non-combatants when there's no uniformed personnel on the combatant side. And then what's really interesting is that nobody was allowed back into the city without being searched first.
And Brian, you wanted to add more points to the
Yeah,
comparison? I'll
definitely.
keep it
Because
brief because I see a
there's
few
this
hands up.
great, sure. There's this great author, Patrick O'Donnell. He was embedded with the Marines in Fallujah, and within 2 years, he had published his book, We Were One. And I got to meet him and talk to him about this. I read the book; it's excellent. And I was reviewing some of this other material related to this recently. So there were about 200,000 or 300,000 civilians in Fallujah. There was already an earlier battle, so a lot of people left from that. And 70 to 90% of the civilians were allowed to leave. They surrounded the city for weeks. Yes, they were controlling what could go in and out, but they weren't preventing. It's not like Gaza, which is completely surrounded. Nobody is getting in and out of Gaza whatsoever. 70 to 90% of the civilian population, almost all the women, children, and elderly that could move themselves, were allowed to leave. That's a huge difference from what's going on in Gaza now. And yes, war is hell, and there were innocent people who were too old or too sick to move, and some of them died in the fighting, and that's tragic. That's what I call, sadly, horribly, it's quote unquote acceptable collateral damage. Keeping all the civilians in Gaza and not letting them leave, my goodness, I'm so proud that the U.S. prioritized civilians the way they did in Fallujah. I'm just sorry Israel's not doing that.
So
in Gaza.
CNN,
So I'd like to
by the way,
ask
CNN just put
one for
out
a
perfect
question.
timing, Zev. Let me mention that, and I'll give you the mic, Zev. But CNN just put out efforts to extract hostages from Gaza were complicated by the expansion of the Israeli ground of operation. So it's just put out by CNN, according to sources. So I'm going to get more information from that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mario,
I'd
the
like to
biggest
ask.
difference is time, right? There was 6 months between the first Battle of Fallujah and the second Battle of Fallujah, where U.S. forces occupied the outside. You can call it an occupation. Controlled the outsides of the city. It was a sanctuary inside the city. That's a massive difference to what is going on in Gaza, which was allowed to be a sanctuary for Hamas military capability for decades. And you can't just say, well, you could stop everything, you could let everybody flow out. It's not, it's more analogous to the 2017 Battle of Mosul. And I keep saying this, where 700,000 civilians were trapped in the cities by ISIS. And even when Iraqi security forces did everything they could to evacuate, ISIS kept people in, which you can't say that Hamas is not trying to keep people in, especially like Gaza City, where the main combat is going to happen.
Brian, what
Israel
do you
said
make of that?
800,000 people evacuated, so the majority have
So
left the north
Brian,
now.
yeah, just a moment. Okay, so I'd like to ask Colonel Spencer a question. So, as a military analyst, as someone who is strictly American, is Israel thus far, or has Israel thus far, been conducting their operations in accordance to the laws of warfare, in your opinion, with international law, and have the targets that have been hit, while there is high civilian casualties, Are they legitimate strikes in your opinion, based on what you've seen?
Right. So based on, look, I'm an analyst. In order to get that low, the answer from my perspective is absolutely to include going beyond the safeguards, like calling a building before they hit it, like roof knocking, like the 2 weeks of evacuation. There is requirements, legal obligations, and then there's kind of moral should do. I, to say that every strike is a military target, I believe so. I haven't seen any evidence otherwise, and I actually really enjoyed the ICC, who is the people that do the investigations at the Rafah crossing, saying, "Look, I want to get in here. I will hold everybody accountable, both sides. I want to get into the investigation." Of course, you can't do that now, but there's nothing I've seen to include the level of destructions, or unfortunately, and every one of them is a travesty, the level of civilian casualty deaths is not ahistorical to battles of Mawari, battles of Mosul, Raqqa, Aleppo, uh, and many other ones. You can't compare the 2004 Second Battle of Fallujah to Gaza. It's just there's too many differences.
Okay, thank you.
Did
Did
Habiba?
very
anyone see
quickly of that, or
did
no?
anyone see the
Very
hospital
quick
attack? The
response, or
attack on the
No,
hospital
but
today.
yeah,
The
but
attack
Brian,
on the
let
Turkish
Habiba finish. Yeah,
hospital.
go
Is that the
ahead.
one
Go
that
ahead.
is that the cancer one, Habiba?
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
a Turk, and
Turkish
the
Turkish cancer
Turkish
hospital.
government has condemned the attack because it was against. And I don't know if you guys have seen the map of it. There's no buildings anywhere near. It's literally just
But do we
the
know what
Turkish
level? Do you know
Cancer
what level
Hospital.
damage, just subjectively speaking, what level of damage was caused? Was it
Yeah,
direct hit?
yeah. There was an actual video of the attack, and the Turkish hospital was warned. So the UN today said 10 hospitals were warned that they were going to be attacked. And obviously, every single UN and humanitarian organization on the planet has been condemning it throughout the whole of the
So
UNSC
let's
Council
so there
today.
were
I've
the
never
hospital
heard that
was
in my life.
warned.
Yeah,
All of the hospitals
and then
were
there was a
warned.
film of the actual attack. So the Turkish government came out and condemned it because it is literally just for cancer patients. So I mean, it was just
So
horrific,
how many other
horrific
hospitals were
attack.
warned?
All of
So
them.
10 hospitals have been warned,
Is that all of them,
and
Ahmed? No, there's
three
more,
were
no?
hit. No,
All
this
of
is
the
just in
hospitals
Gaza
in
City
Gaza
and
have
in
been
northern
warned.
Gaza.
Today, she's
Yeah.
talking. I
Yeah,
think
but
Habiba's
all
talking today.
but today I
So
don't know
okay.
the number, but all of the hospitals in Gaza have been warned so far. Literally all of the Gaza hospitals, Gaza Strip, not Gaza City.
And
And
the UN
today
has warned
they
that it's
bombed.
still a war crime to hit those hospitals, yet they've still done it. 3 were hit today.
Yeah, they hit the third floor in the Turkish hospital, cancer hospital.
And yesterday we're hitting around, both Al Quds and Shifa
Oh yeah,
again in the vicinity.
the Quds Hospital is in Gaza City. It's near. It's in the area called Tel El Hawa, and they were like massive, massive. I think like people were reporting like more than 200 airstrikes were just around the hospital. And the hospital was damaged. Some people were injured in the hospital because they're evacuees in the hospital. People are sheltering inside the hospital. So I think there was like 12,000 people sheltering inside the hospital. They were injured, and the hospital had some damage. But the damage on the Turkish hospital, cancer hospital, it was just too severe. I think they bombed the third floor, and it was still on fire. It was on fire for a very long time. That's the
It's
information
the only
we have.
cancer hospital in the whole
Yeah,
of Gaza, and they've bombed it. And there's no civilian buildings, there's nothing around it, there's
But
no
we do. So
tunnels
we don't. But
nearby, and
when
they've
you
gone
make
and bombed it.
Habib, when you make a statement, there's no tunnels nearby. I don't know if there is, and if someone asks me, I'll just say I
There's
don't know. Why do you say there's no tunnels? I'm not sure if you've been there, but why do you say there's no tunnels nearby? Maybe you're right. I just don't know how you can be
So
so
if you
sure
look
about
at
it.
even if you look at the IDF keep publishing schematics and things like that. Look at an aerial shot of, and there are photos circulating. It's almost virtually, it looks like it's in the desert, right?
But
It's
why
not in an
can't? But why
urban
can't?
dense
But
environment
why
But
because
can't
they
you
that
have
can't
tunnels
attack
in the
it.
desert?
you
No,
can.
there was a statement. There was a statement from one of the hospital directors, and he said he's worked there for 14 years and he would never have worked there. This is a separate hospital. He said he would never have worked there if it was a Hamas
But this
command
is on
center.
two points. So this is if it's a Hamas command center,
Yeah.
and this is based on his knowledge, or maybe he's denying it. But and this is also a separate hospital. So I'm just putting you on the spot to also point out it goes on both sides. I condemn any strikes on a hospital, and to be honest, even if there's a tunnel there, I would condemn the strike nonetheless. I think find other ways. This is my stance,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't,
absolutely,
but I
Mario.
wouldn't, I
These
wouldn't
are,
make. But at the same
yeah.
time, I would not make the statement that, and someone could disagree with me. Someone may not condemn it. Say, hey, if there's a tunnel, there's a tunnel. This is a military target, and I think from a legal perspective, it does not make it a war crime if there's a tunnel. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember a panelist has said that. But Habiba, the only thing I disagree with is making, and correct me if I'm wrong. Whoever just tried to jump in a bit, but just making explicit statement the same way you'd make a statement that someone says there's tunnels under the hospital. I'm like, we don't know that. And when you say there's no tunnels, we don't know that either. And then also to one more point, Habiba, why would they strike a hospital? I understand the benefit to strike fear, but there's many other ways to do it. I don't think it will help them much. If any, it'll just, every time they strike a hospital, the media jumps on it. Everyone starts talking about it. And obviously, it's probably the thing that's gone the most viral about the war is that hospital is hit by one side or the other. So it just does it hurts the support that Israel's getting in the war. Do you disagree?
Okay, so there's a few things. I mean, as I said yesterday, there are tunnels in locations under Gaza. But the reason the international community, I've never seen this, and I've worked in the aid space and the governance space for years. I've never seen such condemnations from the UN, the ICRC, from UNRWA, from every single body. I mean, the condemnations at the UNSC, you can probably watch it on the UN live web. It was unanimous, and they were saying that these people are targeting hospitals left, right, and centre, the families of the doctors. It's relentless. And so, I mean, if you're assuming that they're benignly, not they're going around and it's precision bombs, it's not the case.
Well, if I may offer
Not the case.
something, Mario, because I really need to jump off. First of all, I sent you a private DM about something that Habiba was trying to say about shooting protesters in Israel. I think that
Yeah.
was the message she was referring to, and it's not even close to that. But
Correct.
I sent you the statement and the translation, so you can go and look up for it. But first of all, it's not a question of if there is tunnels. As somebody that served in the IDF and been to all of the West Bank, I wasn't in Gaza, but I was all in the West Bank, and there's 100% tunnels that I walked in, okay, under mosques, under other very humanitarian places in the West Bank. So this is not, maybe, perhaps it's a state fact. I've been to those tunnels myself personally. That's one. Two, and this is just a thought process, Mario, for you, because you asked the question. If it's some place in a war zone that that will be heavily condemned, and a very peak of, if you bomb this place, the whole world, UN, UNRWA, whatever, will condemn you. Maybe this is the perfect place to be in if you're trying to sneak out of or escape an attack. Just as a thought process.
Okay, I have a question, and for everyone, for forever who was speaking.
Let's
imagine. Yeah, yes. Okay, a question for you and for Dev. Let's imagine a hypothetical situation where there was a terrorist group in Israel. Okay, and they took hostages and they sheltered in, let's say, a hospital or a home or whatever, and they had hostages there. Will the IDF launch strikes on that place or not?
So
I mean,
if
it's a
terrorists,
different
so
context of internal, an intra-war versus an inter-war. I mean, the context is different. A terrorist organization taking within a community, I mean, that's a policing action. When we're trying to compare that to the laws of war, the requirement to identify a protected site like a hospital, and it loses its protection if used for military means. It doesn't just have to have a tunnel underneath it. It can be used for military means, and it loses its protection. And then other
It's a yes
necessity,
no
all the
question.
no, they wouldn't bomb it. They'd send a strike force like Magab or somebody else to storm it or besiege it or other reasons. But the context is way different.
Okay, let's go back
And under
like few years.
so hold on.
under
No,
humanitarian law,
okay,
there's a very clear
okay.
aspect where
Just okay.
proportionality is also.
Sorry, yeah, we got to get to the hands here. Sorry, just if you have if a comment you want to add in, raise your hand, please. Hoshar, you've been waiting patiently. Please, sir, go ahead.
Thank you very
But please
much.
answer my question.
He said no. I
Just
think he
don't
said.
ignore
He
the
said no.
question.
No. He said they would not strike it.
I said no. It's war
Correct.
versus policing.
No, it's for everyone.
Yeah.
I'd like Dev to answer this question
Yeah,
actually.
I'll answer. I will absolutely answer it. I think that Colonel Spencer made a very, very astute point, right? So it is a very different situation when you're dealing with a internal group that has taken hostages versus a terrorist group in another sovereign district that has taken hostages. So I'm going to just agree with Colonel Spencer. Hoshar, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Mario, the question you asked about the hostages and the soldier that was rescued is extremely important. We talked about it, but in a way that they were not connected. So the Israeli army says that, IDF says, they rescued the soldier last night. Let's say for a moment this is true. If this is true, Hamas knew. So instead of this becoming the news, they will come up with, putting out a statement from the hostages, and that changes the dynamic because we talk about the military aspect, the strategy, the geopolitics. We don't talk about the battle of the nerves in the media and the public opinion. So that's one way to look at it. The other part is and that's why initially I said I was surprised the Israelis, revealed they rescued a soldier because that would, signal to Hamas that they can get to them. They will probably change everything within Gaza in terms of the hostages. There is a couple of points I would like to make. It's really, nothing special about, being a specific religion or ethnicity. I was born a Kurd, a Muslim in Iraqi Kurdistan. It's none of my power. I think in this space there is a lot of back and forth. Let's agree on a couple of things. First of all, killing civilians anywhere, whether you are an expert in international law or not, just as a human, is wrong. In Iraq, Saddam Hussein bombed a city. They killed 5,000 people in a couple of hours. They arrested 180,000 civilians, villagers. Supposedly, there's the supporters of the rebels. They buried them in mass graves. I mentioned it a couple of nights ago. My father was among them. I don't still know where the remains are. And I had friends from Palestine in a training course. It took them 3 months to admit that this is wrong because they like Saddam. So agree that killing civilians, whether it's Hamas, the Israelis, that is something we should all condemn without any qualifications. The second, it's obvious. Any human being in a condition, whether you are a hostage, a prisoner, whatever, you are really going to say whatever you are supposed to say. So you can't really trust, um, one side or the other. But I think it is very important because right after Hamas put out this video of the hostages, the Israeli government then revealed they have rescued a soldier overnight. That could be true. That could not be true. And then this was Hamas basically signaling to the Israeli public, at least, the way to release the hostages is through negotiations and peace. The Israeli government came on TV, prime minister, the defense minister, they said no. The fact that we were able to rescue a soldier is proof that the only way to be able to bring those people back is through pressure, because that's the language Hamas understands. And just to the point of hospitals, the third floor of the Turkish hospital was bombed. Is there a tunnel on the third floor? Thank you very much.
So there's allegations. There's allegations of tunnels, but there's also allegations of storing equipment and having personnel in the hospital. Again, I don't know if this is
It
true.
was on the third floor. It was. Yeah.
Come on, Mario.
No,
Come
but
on.
Ahmed, I'm being
Yeah,
no,
so
Ahmed, I'm being objective. So I genuinely don't know why these hospitals are being struck.
Can't hear you.
Did you read the report that they were they were storing weapons on the third floor of the
I've
hospital?
seen claims that
Please show them.
I've posted one of them. So there's not only a report. There's reports on this as well. But and I'm not saying these are true. I'm not trying to convince you they're true, because I understand any reports coming from these.
I don't think you can hear.
Well, Ahmed, you can't hear. Let me remove him and I'll bring him back up. But so Ahmed, there's reports, but any reports that are coming from Hamas or the IDF, I gotta take them with a grain of salt. And there's also the hostages from October 7th. They were admitting to taking to having equipment in the hospitals and having tunnels under the hospitals. I've posted that a while ago. So it's being interrogated. Again, grain of salt. Is he being coerced, etc.? And on top of this, there's also the Iranian, the Palestinian, the oil minister, I think it was, in Gaza, who said the same thing. Who said Hamas is holding a lot of oil under their tunnels, and I can't remember if they said they have tunnels under the hospital. Again, I cannot.
Sorry, who said that?
I think it was the oil minister. I've posted it as well. I've just
We don't have an oil
Bro,
minister.
I'll let you. I think it's the oil minister. I'll send it.
I think it was the energy
energy
minister.
minister, or not oil minister.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
So
yeah.
so you can check it out, and maybe his voice is wrong. I don't know. Maybe you know who that is.
So the energy
And
minister
Mario, I
said
sent
we
you.
have
Let
tunnels
me.
beneath
No,
hospitals.
no. I think the energy minister.
So
Hold on, Zev. The energy minister was talking about Hamas holding fuel. They use for their tunnels, and started saying that Hamas doesn't really care about civilians whether they die or
Oh,
not.
please show me that.
Yeah,
Please
that's
show me
That
that.
is the
minister.
I
minister.
So
Yes,
and again,
yes.
I want to point out.
The Israeli.
Mario, it
Yeah.
was the Hamas leader Musa who spoke yesterday on Al Jazeera. He says we have built the tunnels for ourselves.
yeah.
It's the UN that should take care of the civilians and
No, no,
Well,
no,
Israelis.
it
no.
I
wasn't.
don't know if
Hold
the
on, hold
video
on,
was
hold on.
cut,
That's
but
Just,
right.
that's what I
just
saw.
now,
For sure.
just to what
Let me jump
Mr.
here.
Mudder said.
Nawfal
Excuse
is
me,
right.
just 1 minute. We're going to come to you in a minute. So, in terms of what the Hamas leader said, right? He said that yes, we built tunnels there to protect Hamas, not the civilians. It is the responsibility of the UN and Israel to protect civilians. I thought that the first role of a government, which Hamas is to protect its citizens. And there was a UN report, which I will send to you, Mario, from several
But he
years
was
ago.
speaking about Hamas, the military
Yeah.
side. He's not speaking about the governmental
Well,
side.
they're killing the UN
Okay.
workers
So
too,
the
right?
So,
Gaza
Yeah, that's
so
true.
the it's a
That's true.
Gaza is the Gaza energy official admitting Hamas. He admitted the following. I've just pinned it at the top, and again that's alleged. So just to be, I even added alleged in the tweet. So just to be clear, Ahmed, have significant
Oh, so it's
you have to
okay, okay.
let me just read out. I've pinned it at the top. Have significant fuel reserves and not supplying enough to the hospitals. Still control Gaza. Have 500,000 liters of fuel underground. Have oxygen, phones, showers, and lighting. You remember that? I think you made fun of it. You said jacuzzis and stuff. Do you remember that?
Yeah, so it's a
Exactly,
recording from
exactly,
the IDF,
exactly, exactly.
just like the two people speaking that were not even Gazan.
Exactly. You
Like
don't.
you guys were speaking about the accent. Like I can tell 100% that this is not a Gazan accent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
So
Never
that's
mind.
what.
Key
But
What.
question you've got
can
to
I
ask
speak
yourself.
Yeah,
something?
guys,
The
hold on.
key question
Habiba,
you
just two secs, Habiba, please. Yeah, go ahead, Ahmed, and then we'll go to Dylan, and then Lucas as well has been quiet. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I actually want to go back to the topic of the humanitarian aid and the medical equipment. I think what's happening now, what Israel is doing, blocking like the supply, the flow of aid coming into Gaza, is just the result of the dehumanization that they're doing. Like when you dehumanize people and you call them human animals, then you treat them as such. Brian made such like great statement when he was talking. He said like the Israelis could do much better. They could if they're claiming to be like the most humanitarian and the only democracy and whatever, they can do much better gestures. And I'd like to get Dylan's response to that. Like Dylan, I think you've had your hand for. I'm not moderating this space, but I think he has some point because he's a veteran, I believe so. So if you want to allow Dylan to speak,
Of course, Dylan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So what was the question specifically?
we're talking about the flow of humanitarian aid and what could Israel do, like from a military point of view and a humanitarian point of view, to let the flow of aid going in. And John was speaking earlier about the Fallujah and like whatever humanitarian aids, like they were doing, the strategies of whatever. I think you have much more insight on this.
Well, I certainly don't know if I have more insight than he does. He certainly is.
Okay.
I think.
I thought you held your hand like because you wanted to speak about it.
I have certainly been
How
doing
does
a
it?
lot of
Hold on,
studying
hold on.
conflict
How does
for a
it feel?
long time.
So just 2 seconds, Dylan. So Ahmed, how does it feel to moderate? You tried it once, it didn't go too well, did it, Ahmed?
I'm not moderating, but he
joking.
raised his
Relax, I'm joking.
he raised his hand. So I thought he wanted to talk about. I actually want us to speak more about it. It needs more weight. It needs to be talked about more.
Yeah, and on the good
That's
news,
my point.
on that front, Dylan, I'm going to give you the mic as well. Just one thing, Ahmed, on a good positive note. Not sure how positive it can be in a state of war, but on a positive note, more humanitarian aid was approved today because of U.S. pressure. So that happened. Still not enough.
100 trucks.
Yeah, so still not enough, but it's at least heading in the right direction. So that's one piece of news. And Ahmed, I wanted to ask you that question. I usually ask you all the time, but how's everyone in Gaza? I know after that day, which would have been a pretty horrible day, everyone seems okay. Was there any damage to their properties? Anyone you know that was impacted?
Oh yeah, my sister was injured because the building next to them was bombed, and there was all of the glass was shattered, and she got injured. But it's minor injuries, so thankfully it's not a big thing. But yeah, everyone's not doing good. If that's what you want. If you want that's what you want to hear. People are so frightened. People are dying by the second. like literally everywhere. They tell people to go south. Like I heard Netanyahu today saying, like, we told people to go south. This is gonna protect them. No, they're bombing people in the south. So that's just a big lie from that war crime, from war criminal. So the situation is really dire. Like I'm hearing there are clashes, like here and then in the northern areas. A lot of people have been bombed in the south, in the north, in Gaza City. I just keep, like, if I follow the news for 5 minutes, there'll be like at least 10 buildings that have been bombed. There are people inside. Like the ambulances cannot reach there because of the severity of the bombing, especially in the northern areas. A lot of people on motorbikes and even people who are cycling, people on a bicycle, they were bombed today in the streets. So I don't know what you want me to say, but like my people are dying like by the second. So it's still been going on. No one is safe. The hospitals are very, very, very busy. They don't have any equipment. They're like, I think in like until now we had like almost 20,000 injured people. That's not a small number. From small injuries to critical injuries. It's I don't know what to say, to be honest. Like if you have a direct question, to just ask it. But the situation is really bad.
The UN says every day 420 children are killed and injured. So you can see the big picture from that number.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I do want to go to Dylan, and I appreciate that update, Ahmed. And I hope your sister is a serious injury or is just a light injury.
Thankfully, it's a light one. It's just a shattered glass
Did she need
that injured
did she
head.
need to go to hospital?
No, we're a family of doctors,
Oh,
so
okay.
we did some stitches.
Does your family do they work in Gaza at the moment or not?
My family is based in Gaza City, so they fled north, so they can't go back to work.
They fled north.
No, my family is
from Gaza
from
City,
Gaza
but you said
City, and they fled south. Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, they fled south. Yeah, south. So they can't go back to work to work because you've seen some people were trying to go back today, but they were surprised by a tank and they were killed.
I do want to, but would you just back up that tank before I go to Dylan? Do we have any context on that tank, on that car? Did you see, like, did the car, maybe there's a certain target in that car? Maybe there was any shooting or nothing at all? I'm not sure how much
Yeah,
context we have.
actually, yeah. Hold on, because I had it in my tweets. Just give me a
Yeah, no
minute.
worries. Let me go to Dylan. Dylan, I appreciate being patient, and then we'll go to where's the gentleman? Lucas is there. Perfect. Dylan, go ahead.
Yeah, just but we're talking about that car in the tank. So there was a journalist. I'm not going to try to butcher his name. It's posted on my page somewhere. The journalist who was recording the car moving toward where that tank is said that there were 3 occupants of the vehicle. And his claim, and I certainly would not know, his claim is that they were trying to flee the area. You can clearly see that it is a tank. It's a Merkava Mark IV. And that's the technical breakdown of that, as far as I know. He clearly is a journalist. It's a Canon L series 70 to 200 lens. It's not some amateur's camera lens sitting in that car. So that was a journalist in there. I think it is the guy that's linked. Again, I'm not going to try his name, but as far as the issues of what could be done differently in Gaza, it's really difficult because you want to try to compare it to other conflicts, but this is a very unique area, especially, first with population density that really has not been too much like this in the history of modern warfare necessarily. There are things that we can try to analogize it to, but it will always be imperfect. And when you're dealing with something like that, it's going to leave pretty much all of the answers for what could or could not be done a little bit bittersweet always. But I think I do think other things could be done if it were me. If it was something that I was trying to make critical decisions about, I would try to slow play this a little bit more. I do have the sense early on that this was done in a bit of a reactionary mentality. Maybe it was there was an opportunity, there was a response to a thing that had occurred, and people just began moving, and in doing that, put themselves into a position where, at least in my opinion, there's a number of civilian casualties that are certainly well above the unacceptable threshold. But when you're talking about issues of morality and then issues of legality, those are very different things. You could talk to the colonel all day long and he could tell you whether or not something is legal by the laws of war, and it may well be, but that certainly does not make it moral. I think the only thing that any of us could probably agree on at this point is that you should make every effort to minimize civilian casualties to the greatest degree possible in all circumstances on both sides of this conflict.
I do want to.
Well said.
I will gonna go to Lucas in a bit. Lucas, you've been pretty quiet, but Dylan, I've just got one other question for you. Is the whole tunnel debate? That's something that's obviously very polarizing. I'm pretty split on this. Usually, you can always try to get an idea of which side, where the incentives align. But when you start looking at hospitals, I just don't see much incentive for Israel to hit the hospitals. I know there's some incentives to harm the infrastructure of the region, to scare the population, to pressure Hamas, or to pressure the population to go against Hamas, which is, arguably collective punishment. But on the other side, it does backlash. And again, I'm putting the humanitarian aspect aside. They get international condemnation whenever they hit a hospital, and they do get. I'm sure they get a lot more pressure behind the scenes. What's your position when it comes to hospitals? Tunnels under hospitals.
Yeah, it's probably gonna mirror yours to an extent. When I'm thinking about it so you think about it in a couple different ways, right? As a human, you look at it and you're just, oh my God, it's a hospital. And that is probably the appropriate response, in my opinion. But I think from a strategic perspective, if you were looking at this from IDF command, and you would have to kind of hypothesize what information they're working with, right? Because they're clearly going to play their intel close to the chest as to why they're doing these things. And as a general rule, I don't typically trust the official statements of governments, but they might say something like there was equipment in there, or personnel or command center in there, or something like that. But from their perspective, maybe if you're fighting an adversary that is predominantly relying on the leverage of hostages, maybe by striking high emotional impact targets, you may be able to cause those hostages to exert some sort of influence or unrest, where they might be more likely to give them up. It's really difficult to gauge, because when I think about it, what the value could be there as a target, a hospital, especially one that serves a critical purpose like the Turkish hospital did, I don't see the trade-off for them in the public eye.
Yeah,
Can I say
I
something
actually
very briefly, Mario?
Yeah, go ahead, Hosha.
I think you have to look at it from the perspective of the Israeli strategy. So when they want the hospitals, they wanted them to leave. When they don't leave, they attack here and there around the hospitals, because they want everybody that can to leave. And the tank that went into the Salahuddin Road today, it shows that the Israelis are trying to circle the Hamas fighters, go through tunnels, completely clear the north from the population, from the buildings, from the tunnels of the fighters, so that the Hamas fighters cannot move, to the south with the population. And then, if the plan, to force, the Gazan civilians, out into Egypt does not work, the international pressure, the Egyptians don't accept that, they might, then ask them to go back to the north. And this was something that Malcolm mentioned a few days ago, uh, and then clear the south. So that seems to be the strategy. And as for tanks targeting civilians, that happened in the Iraq war like hundreds of times. You had to stay away like 100, 150 meters away from the tanks, because you can assume in these few weeks that the Israeli soldiers have been trained. They've been told to expect car bombs, IDEs, suicide bomb, whatever. So I think on the Palestinian side, at least international organizations and the Israeli army should put out some procedure. For example, if you are a civilian, just turn off the car, get out of the car, so that we know you are a civilian. Turning back, that was the reason they attacked. They've been told, whenever you see a threat, target it.
And it's always
So
important. There's something to point out before I go, Alex and Dylan. There's something I'll point out. There's going to be evil on both sides in every war. There's going to be evil Israeli soldiers. There's going to be evil Palestinian citizens. There's going to be evil, obviously, Hamas soldiers. So something to point out. Like I wouldn't. If one soldier. We'll see instances in every war we see, and I said the same thing in the Russia-Ukraine war. We'll see instances on both sides of people not obeying orders or doing something that's outside the code of conduct that they have to follow. So I'm not sure if this is one of those examples, Zev.
yeah, just a quick point, right? So listen, of course, the intentional targeting of a hospital, if it's for any other reason than having weapons or something or tunnel stored there, of course I condemn. That being said, Mario, I have sent you via DM UNRWA report, which is not the most pro-Israel agency in the world, that has specifically condemned Hamas for placing rockets in their schools twice. So I would just point out that the possibility does exist that if they're willing to put rockets into schools, they'd be willing to put rockets into hospitals. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it is completely possible.
Could I just jump in on the tank thing real quick, and then I'll let whoever's going next. A good way when you're looking at a situation like that is to, especially if they have American advisors, as they do, potentially informing on escalation of force protocols, what you might like to see, right? If you're trying to think about what is the most moral way to kill someone in their own neighborhood, which obviously there's not. But if you're trying to figure out how to make it the most legal way to do that would be you would want to analyze that video, and it would need to be longer to see if there was some standardized escalation of force, right? Maybe like an auditory warning in the Afghan wars. That was where I was. You would use like a laser into the eyes of the driver, and then maybe another kind of auditory or a warning shot before you would engage lethally. And in that video, I didn't really see any of those things. I did see them turn back, which if that was a vehicle approaching an ACP that was ran by a U.S. force, the turning around would be the point at which we would continue to pay attention to it, not then decide to take lethal action.
And that's the thing that I was trying to say, Dylan, is that in the short video, and again, it's very conveniently being cut from what happened before and what happens after, but I'm not going to say about that anything. You can see the car not actually stopping and turning, Ellie actually trying to pivot his way from one direction to the other direction just before the impact. So
No. That's actually false. So there are two ways.
You're telling me that I didn't see what I saw?
What I'm saying is that the car was moving forward. It saw a tank, then it hit reverse, and then it was going to the other street, because the other street is the one going backwards. It's not a two-way street.
So
the other
it's
street
a,
is the
so
one.
it's a so it's a pivot. I was completely right about that. It's going
No, it's
one
going
way.
back. It's going back.
That's called a pivot. You're trying to go from one direction, pivot like they do in basketball, and then go to the other direction. But I'm not
what's your
trying
point,
to,
Alex? Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. So if he's pivoting
no,
backwards,
I'm just
yeah,
trying.
go ahead.
I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say that if you're in such a dense area, if you're in an area where there is bombings and army and militia, you're trying to be as less of a suspect as you can possibly be. So, for instance, stopping the car, I don't know, taking your hand out of the window, saying something, no, we're civilians, doing something, some kind of a gesture, but having the car go one way, see the tank, and then immediately escape from that, this indicates something else in
Yes,
terms
so
of the signals.
I'm just trying to understand. So I'm watching the video again.
Listen,
Ahmed,
because
hold on,
here,
Ahmed. It could be for sure. But Ahmed, just a quick. I'm watching the video again. It's the one I've pinned above for the audience. Not sure if there's another video, Ahmed. But in that one, so it just zooms in. We just it is the only point I agree with that the gentleman just made is that it conveniently starts immediately when the car turns. Is there a full footage of what happened so we can see the entire context? Because I know it's having a lot of impact on people escaping from it's from the north to the south, correct? And then it reverts back north. Is that correct, Ahmed?
we actually don't know which direction, because it's, I actually don't know. Like, seeing from the footage, I have to be there just
All right,
to,
let me see what it says. Hold
to
on, let's
see
see
if they were
what.
going from
Mario
north
came
to
from
south.
south to north because you see
Well,
him.
Key Gaza,
You
north
see
to
him
south,
turn-
north to south road, raising speculative advance to Gaza City. An Israeli tank and armored vehicle reportedly having cut Salahuddin Road near Gaza City, with speculation of an advance. A video circulating on social media shows an Israeli tank destroying a vehicle, resulting in casualties. Salahuddin Road was preferred evacuation route for Palestinians in the northern Gaza Strip due to concerns about alternative coastal roads' proximity to the Israeli Navy. Sorry, what were you saying, Hoshiyar? And I want to get, so while wait, Hoshiyar unmutes, just the audience, if you can check the video I've put at the top, I've just pinned it, the latest one. I'm actually curious what you guys think. Like, let me know on that video if there's anything we're missing. Also, if you can give us your
So
thoughts
I'm
on
just
the the recording as well. There's
so
three.
Mario, I'm just looking at the
Yeah,
video
two
again.
seconds,
Okay,
Let me
The
just
co-
ask the audience to give us
sorry.
give us their source. So just there's three videos we've discussed. They're all pinned above. One of them is the one we're talking about now, the car, and the car moving either from north to south or vice versa. The second one is the recording of the alleged recording of the Gaza energy official admitting a few things about Hamas, hoarding fuel and not caring about the population. And the third one is about the Israeli prisoners and their message to Netanyahu or to Israel. And they made a few statements about, why are you killing us? Why aren't you trying to save us? You promised to release us, but instead we are still in captivity. So I'd love to your thoughts on these 3 videos that we've analyzed today. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so just one quick point, and I wanted to refresh my memory and to see the video again. I'm actually looking at it now for the 4th time in the last minute. So cars going in speed in one way, it sees a tank and then takes a little bit of a pivot left, turns back and trying to escape from the situation. Now, this is just my natural behavior as somebody that's not committed a crime in his life. If I'm going somewhere and I see a military force, a police force, whatever, my first initial is not, let's run from this situation.
I would disagree with that. I would disagree with that. No,
that's my opinion.
Yeah, I would disagree. Just one moment, because I worked.
In war, you run. There's no time to wave and say hello, especially when it's an enemy like Israel that's been bombing the hell out of them. Come on.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. The only thing I would push back is because I did work in the orbit of criminal justice. It is actually very common for people when they see somebody in authority, or even if they haven't done anything wrong, there is an ingrained thought in some people's processes in their mind to instinctively turn the other direction. I mean, when they do check programs on the highway, if someone's been drinking and driving, even if they haven't been drinking and driving, there is a natural fear of police that may stem from, previous encounters, family encounters. I do tend to agree with you. Like most, people that are in a calm setting, they'd have no fear, right? But I just don't think that necessarily people in Gaza would feel the same way as somebody, in a normal setting, if that makes any sense. I agree with you.
Are they not human?
No. So if you had listened to what I said was people who live in a conflict-free zone, sometimes they can even have a fear of police, right? If the police stops you, automatically you get that feeling in your head, even if you've done nothing wrong. So in a situation like Gaza, where there's a heightened tension, there is a preconditioned fear of the IDF. I could absolutely see someone turning away, not because they've done something wrong, simply because they are potentially in fear of their life. That is what I was trying to say.
It is a common response. Vehicles
Yeah.
moving toward an entry control point will commonly turn around instinctively. I've also worked in a law enforcement capacity. Vehicles moving toward a checkpoint, even if it's just a DUI, will turn around to avoid it. It's a normal.
What do you think? So Dylan, what's your thoughts on that video? What would you make out of it? I know you try to always be hesitant in what you say, but do you think that was intentional?
I'm sorry. I try to be really kind of stance back when I'm answering these questions for you, because obviously, everybody has their own opinion on these things. So I try to just analyze it from an informational perspective for you and keep my bias out of it as much as I can. I mean, it's obviously there, but as far as I can tell, with the information that I have seen about the video, that journalist claims that it was civilians trying to flee the area. The behavior of the vehicle seems standard for a group of civilians who just rolled up on a tank and they were surprised by it. Even if, it's really difficult to say. My experience with suicide vehicle-borne IEDs, which would be the primary claim that most people would make that this would be, is that they move toward their target and not away from it. So if this was an SVB IED, I would expect it to try to charge toward that tank. If you look at the armored
Could it be, Dylan, could it be, I kind of want to end it with this and move on to another topic, and I want to ask Hala a question, but could it just simply be, by the way, I'm leaning to what you're saying, I think this is a more likely scenario, but could it also be their number plate is on a list of targets, for example, that we just don't know about?
It certainly could, but I mean, right now, there's literally no way to know or to confirm that. Yeah,
I do want to go to
Mario. One last comment, and one last comment, and I'll also be leaving because I have to go to work tomorrow. How can you have like a suicide car with a father, mother, and 2 children? Just let that sink in.
Yeah, you would not commonly. It is almost always a
I don't think it's. I never said it was a suicide car, because if it was a suicide car, it would be driving towards its target, not pivoting in the opposite direction. So I just don't think it's the only two scenarios that make sense is the person operating the tank is just either made a mistake or is just an asshole, it's just an evil person and shot at a car of civilians, or this is a car that has someone who's a target for the Israeli Defense Force. It could be a commander, a Hamas commander trying to flee, and now you might be saying, okay, but his family's with him. Should they shoot the car with the family in there? Should they use a tank for that? That's a separate discussion. But they're the only two scenarios that would make sense to me.
I just wondered. So there's a couple hands. There's someone who hasn't spoken yet. I don't know if they wanted to comment on the video or on something else. It's Raviv Ben Shimon, or were we waiting
Yeah,
or coming back to it?
we can go to Raviv has been quiet, and I want to get Lucas' thoughts on this, and then I want to go to Hala on the meeting between the Quds leader and Hezbollah. I just want to understand this further, and I'm wondering whether it could mean anything, especially in preparation for Nasrallah's speech on Friday, because our focus has been for a while now is Hezbollah and Lebanon, what their involvement will be. But Raviv, would love your thoughts on what's being discussed so far. Lucas would love your thoughts on everything, because we've been here for a while, and then we'll go to Hala.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, briefly. Go ahead, man.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I have a couple comments to say regarding the tank. So the letter leaf was saying that that everyone should clear the north, what above the Gaza River. And at that point, when the army got in, they sent a new leaf letters. So now no one should leave, and if they want to leave, they should go with their hands up with a white flag toward to the army, and they will take them to a safe place. So no one should drive cars and
Hold on. So you're saying,
anything.
sorry, Ravi. Are you saying people leaving the north to the south should do it without driving a car, or I misunderstood?
Yeah, as far as I understand, yes. The rules
So 2
change.
seconds. So just to Ahmed, I have a quick question for you, if you don't mind. How long would it take you to walk from northern Gaza to the south of the Strip?
It's a 4-hour walk.
Yeah, around 4 or 5 hours.
Yes.
No, but they say to go to the army with their hands up and with the white flag, and they will take them.
Surrender themselves to the army.
Yes.
So that they take them as hostages too.
No, they will not take them as hostages.
We're familiar with that.
They clear said on the letter they will take them to a safe zone.
Look, a letter is a letter. So
that's what she said.
Hold on, Ahmed. Has anyone seen that letter? Because that's the first I hear of it, of the white flag to military. Hold on, go to the military, as in on the border, Raviv.
No, they are getting into the urban area, so the army is close for sure.
How close? How?
Where is that?
Salah ad-Din is in the almost the middle of Gaza Strip, like from east to west.
I'm curious where that. I haven't seen that. Maybe does it. Raviv, where is it written? I haven't seen that, and I watch everything.
I saw it in Telegram. I in the Telegram group. I can send it to you after I finish the talk.
Thank you. Yeah.
I haven't.
And I also wanted.
Then okay, go on.
And I also wanted to comment on the humanitarian aid. So there is humanitarian aid go to the south of Gaza, and also water and everything. There is no humanitarian aid supposed to get. Let me finish, please. There are no humanitarian aid supposed to get to the north for the same reason that they want that area to be cleared. Also, the Israel in the media, they said there is no humanitarian crisis in the north of Gaza yet. And same as the hospital and everything said that there is no fuel 2 weeks ago for the hospital to be running, but 2 weeks later and the hospital still running with the generators, and there's still electricity there. So I believe they have Hamas have humanitarian, medicine and everything they need to give to those hospitals to keep running.
So I do want to go to.
No, actually, that's not correct. I just want to correct him. So basically, in the south, there is no water still. You see, not all of the water is controlled by Israel. I think about 70, 60%. I'm not sure about the percent. Quote me on that.
So they did not restore the water to the south, not even to the north. So it's been cut. It's not been restored yet. That's one. The second thing, the humanitarian that gets in, it's just like you see in the normal days, 500 trucks would go into Gaza, like with everything, like for trading, for a humanitarian, not humanitarian, like food, medical aid, whatever. 500 per day, and now we're getting like what? Like today is the highest number. What was it? Like 30, 25 trucks per day. That doesn't suffice for 2.2 million. So the argument is just it's whatever. The third thing is sorry, what was the last point he made? I forgot
I
it.
don't. I think it was the generators and the hospitals.
Oh yeah, the generators. So the hospitals in Gaza, especially the Shifa hospital, made a call out for everyone. If you have fuel, just please bring it to the hospital because we're running out of fuel. So I think multiple cities, civilians, people sent the fuel that they had, or even like remnants of the fuel that was in the petrol stations that was sent to the hospital just to keep it going. Because if the hospital goes down, then I think hundreds, if not thousands, people will instantly die.
Is a quick question for you, Ahmed. So, do you know if Hamas is taking any of the fuels that they're using to illuminate their tunnels and giving to the hospital?
I don't believe so. Oh,
Okay.
I don't know. If I knew, I would say
Yeah, no,
that.
no.
Well, obviously.
It was just a question. No, I appreciate that.
I do want to go to Lucas. I'd love to get your thoughts on what's been discussed, and I want to get back to the Hezbollah story and the leader of the Quds Force landing in Lebanon, because those reports, as Heidi said, could be concerning. But Lucas, would love your thoughts on the discussion so far.
Thanks for having me. I've been listening to these spaces for a while, and I'm happy to be a speaker. I was going to jump in earlier when the Islamic State was mentioned, but I got a phone call, unfortunately, and the conversation moved on. But I've been tracking some international developments relating to the Israel-Gaza war, and I've been finding some interesting strategies and a lot of activity coming from both the Al Qaeda and Islamic State side. Al Qaeda actually in the Arabian Peninsula today, their leader did a 1 hour Q&A, and he was calling upon Muslims to strike Jewish targets in the West and globally. And he made the distinction saying that the war is not against Israel and Hamas, it's against Israel and all Muslims. So we're seeing attempts to mobilize and incite on the Al Qaeda side. And it's also worth noting that Zawahiri's successor is believed to be located inside Iran, which is something notable to keep in mind. And on the Islamic State side, we've seen a surge of attacks, bellicose propaganda, and their official media apparatus calling for attacks on Jewish
And
neighborhoods,
which country?
Jewish and Western
Where's that?
embassies. They called for these attacks in America, Europe, and
And
around
who
the
called for
world.
those attacks? Who called for them?
It was the Islamic State in their official weekly newsletter, and as we saw with the attack in Belgium, this was followed by the Islamic State and its supporters calling for um, uh, essentially them to emulate this person and launch their own attacks using whatever means necessary, particularly in Europe, in
How
North
often is it for that?
America.
How often?
And,
Hold on, Lucas. How often is it for them to make such calls?
well, they do this periodically, especially the Islamic State Khorasan branch. But our research network has really observed um, a drastic increase in calls for incitement to violence. And we've seen plots, for instance, thwarted in France, in Luxembourg, in Germany, and there was attack on a French prison guard with a knife and a bomb detonated outside the Israeli embassy in Cyprus. So I think it's
I
important
didn't
to
hear about
look
the
at
bomb.
the.
Has anyone heard the bomb detonated in the Israeli embassy in Cyprus?
Yeah, it was like a
No.
pipe bomb. Yeah.
By the
And
way,
so I think
just
that
talking about attacks, the missile attack targeted our forces and coalition forces at the Ain al-Assad base in Iraq. The Ain al-Assad base attack did not result in any injuries or damage to the infrastructure, according to Al Arabiya. So American officials did confirm another attack. There's just these constant attacks. Look, a direct question for you, Lucas. These constant attacks on American bases, is that something that you'd expect considering the circumstances, or does that concern you?
I think it is concerning and expected, because now we're seeing a regional proliferation of these attacks, and even launches from Yemen, and so on. So I think this is partially why the U.S. is moving so many anti-air assets into the region and essentially preparing for the worst case scenario
What's the
of
worst
a
case?
regional
What's the worst
expansion.
case scenario for you?
Iranian
Iranian direct involved by Iran is out of the question. Or would you disagree?
I would hope so, but it's they're going to prepare for it. The closing of the Strait of Hormuz would be a major issue for the global economy. Just things like this are worst case scenarios.
Mario, I actually found the Cyprus thing. So from AP News, it was actually on the 21st of October. It's 10 days before now. Police in Cyprus said Saturday they arrested 4 Syrians on suspicions of setting up a small explosive device that caused no damage, not far from the Israel embassy in the capital of Nicosia.
Yeah, and a Palestinian was arrested for plotting an attack in Texas. I believe it was today as well.
Okay, can you send me through, Lucas? Can you send me through the Texas one, please? And Alex, can you send me through the other one? Yeah, please send me through the link, guys, if you don't mind.
Already done.
Thank you. It's quick on WhatsApp, on Twitter, yeah.
Yeah,
cool. I'll
DM.
send you through my number as well, so you can send it directly there. All right, so I appreciate that update, Lucas. And just looking through if there's any more updates on that front. But appreciate sending us the updates on the Cypriot and the Greek attacks. But I think they were pretty minimal because I haven't heard of it. I'm not sure if my team posted about it. I want to go to Syrian Girl, but before that, Hala, how are you? Hala?
Yeah, hi.
Hala, have you heard?
Yeah,
Have you heard about the story of the Quds Force? The head of the Quds Force coming into arriving to talk to Nasrallah today.
I mean, these are reports.
Not confirmed. Yeah,
always,
there's a few reports about it, but not confirmed yet.
There's always a huge if, and we can never verify these things.
If it's true, what would it mean?
So it won't be the first time. I mean, it's not like they don't meet up. They do meet up. They come sometime. Obviously now with the situation going on in Gaza, if again with the big if that is the case, they're probably discussing the latest developments. Maybe coordinating for what next. But look, on Friday, Nasrallah will be talking, and the main headline of his speech is obviously, which is for him is more important at the moment as well, because they do consider that, they give it a lot of consideration, the fact that they've lost so many, or the number of the martyrs that they've lost along the border with Israel in the last few weeks since 7th of October. So this would be, his speech would be dedicated to that, for many reasons, but also probably in his speech, he will also at some point, make an assessment of where they are now, indirectly talking about, how they see their military involvement is, where it's not so much where it's heading as in what's going to happen next, but he will put down his military successes, if you want to put it in those words, as in what they've achieved or what they haven't achieved. He would explain a bit of the situation, a bit of the scenario that's going on, what kind of a fight or a war is going on at the moment between the two sides in that context. Now, I don't think on Friday he will be he will never sort of discuss whether they're going full-fledged or not, although that's not likely at the moment, like I've been saying for the last few days. And then if he ever does decide to go full-fledged, it won't be something that he announces before. We were always thinking that the last 3 weeks he hasn't spoken, but we knew he wouldn't. And our assessment was usually that when he does speak in a situation like this, it would be to suggest something like he did in 2006, that, we've started a war, or something is going to happen now, or launch it through an incident or something. But on this occasion, it's not going to be the case. It's just going to be, to commemorate the death of the fallen soldiers, and to lay down his 3 weeks assessment of where this war is, both from the Palestinian side of, his view from the Palestinian side of things, as in Hamas and Gaza, and from the Lebanese side of things. That's my 2 cents. But I had a question earlier, which I was really hoping that I could ask, and somebody might just have a think about it, if I may.
You may.
Thank you. So I want to go with the assumption that there are these tunnels, just hypothetically, these tunnels, Hamas's HQ, Hamas's command ship, everything, we were told, as Netanyahu and everyone is saying, are literally under Al-Shifa hospital. Let's go with that assumption for the sake of argument. So here's my question. Instead of bombing the hell out of Gaza for the last 3 weeks and creating all the mess, the destruction, and the deaths, why haven't they just carried out an attack against Al-Shifa hospital and find these tunnels? If they're so, because he says intelligence, and they gave us all the show and hula hoo about these tunnels existing there, and that they're sure about it. I mean, they've been doing everything but the Shifa hospital. Why haven't they in the past, just like somebody earlier said, evacuated the civilians and just went for the tunnels in the hospital that they claim is the command ship?
Who? Go ahead, Zev.
Well, have they not tried to evacuate the people from the hospital? Yeah. So have they not? Maybe she can't hear me. Have they not already tried to evacuate the people?
Oh, she can't hear you.
Okay, I don't
yeah.
think
So I'll. So the Zev.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
You can
now.
hear the pleasant voice, but not the annoying voice. So I'm gonna bring you down so you can hear the annoying voice. Zev is speaking as well.
Oh.
I'll bring you down, but Zev. So I'll actually bring down. Yeah, I'll bring you down, Hala. It's a good question, Zev.
Okay,
yeah, and I'll bring you back up. So I forgot to mention that. So let me bring you back up. But so the question that Zev is asking, Hala, and I'm gonna ask it while you're coming up. By the way, I did bring up Hussein. Hussein, you've. While waiting for Hala, you've been impacted on a personal level by Hezbollah. Someone just sent us a message, someone we know. So it's a pleasure to have you, Hussein. Maybe you can tell us quickly your story as I bring up Hala. Hussein, you there? Or is it going to glitch for you as well?
Hussein, you have to unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Asaf. Sorry, Hala's there, so I'm going to give you the mic in a bit. Appreciate you joining. Hala, you can hear Zev's voice now? Zev, go
yes.
ahead. Perfect. Zev,
Go ahead. Okay. Yeah. So my response would be this. My first response is a question: have they not already tried through voluntarily evacuate the hospital by warning people, please leave the hospital? Number one. Number two is I do recognize that the claim was made that a Hamas command center is under the hospital, but I did not hear a claim made.
I want to be rude. Sorry. Just a quick, someone can offer me some clarity on this one. The Royal Jet charter from an Emirati charter that's based in Qatar. Does anyone in the audience as well, if you can help me out? Can anyone offer me context on what that means? There's some reports, and apparently it's important, but I'm trying to understand why. A plane of the Emirati charter company, Royal Jet, flies directly from Qatar to Israel.
Yes, I can explain that, but that is probably...
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, if you could, Zev, you could go, and then
well, I'll let Habiba go
ahead
first. Yeah, go ahead, Habiba.
No, I spoke to, after we had that conversation last night, I did speak to a UAE minister, because obviously they are the Arab member on the UNSC. So they're trying everything they can to call for a ceasefire, and their message is that they absolutely want to de-escalate. So what they're trying to do is everything
possible. 2 seconds, sorry. You linked it to who exactly? So, and how you're linking this Royal Jet flight to this group?
So I'll give some explanation. There is diplomatic movement between obviously the UAE and Israel. They signed the accords. And so I asked, the minister about the status of the accords and that kind of thing last night, and what they were doing and what they were working on. And the key message is literally about de-escalation. So they're trying absolutely everything they can, because, I don't know if you guys know that.
I don't want to be rude. Who's trying?
So the UAE side. Okay, the foreign ministry is governed. So you've got the ruling members of, in Abu Dhabi, are also part of the foreign ministry and that kind of thing. So I've worked
you see,
for
this
all
is
these
someone from the UAE royal family?
Not necessarily, because they use the jet to go back and forth, but they do have diplomatic relations, so they're trying absolutely everything to de-escalate. And the key thing is it comes down to this UNSC binding resolution that
So,
was discussed today. So that's what they're trying to get movement
well,
on.
yeah, so I think it clearly. So this is not taking off from Dubai, right? This is
Qatar,
coming from
yes.
Qatar. So yeah. So I think the head of the Mossad was in Qatar. He's not going to take
Yes.
a right. He would never take an airline that wasn't an Israeli airline or a private Israeli airline for security purposes. So this is
Right.
probably a Qatar. This is probably a Qatari diplomat coming to Israel to try to bring down tensions and so forth. And
No,
I
so I
think that
referred to that earlier
yeah.
already. That was the hostage negotiations that the Qatari PM's advisor is they're
So
leading
you
it on
says,
their
but
side within the
this is
Qatari
a
foreign
political
ministry.
representative that's in most like a Qatari or Emirati, considering that it's coming from Qatar, but it's an Emirati charter company.
Okay, so what I have to say is I've never seen, having worked with every group in the region, I've never seen this much coordination to try and de-escalate and call for a ceasefire. So they are working
No, but
hand in hand, and you know that the UAE and
but
No,
Qatar,
I think Mario.
you
I
know,
think the key point is though. So
they're
yeah, the
working hand in
Qataris
hand.
are. I'm not sure that the Qataris are interested in so much as a ceasefire. I think the Qataris are playing a lead role in the hostage negotiations. I don't think that they're one and the
there's a
same.
reason I'm asking,
They
but
absolutely
guys,
do want a ceasefire.
guys.
They signed up to the
But the
Arab.
question, Habiba,
They signed up to the Arab.
the
Yeah,
question I'm asking
sorry.
is specific for a reason. Who would
Mhm.
use, and if someone from the audience knows, put it in the comments or DM me, but who would use an Emirati charter company Royal Jet? That would be someone that's Emirati, from the Emirati Ministry of whatever, Foreign Affairs Ministry, or someone from the royal family.
No, Mario. You're forgetting though. But Qatar and Israel, I don't believe they have a lot of relations. Habiba, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, so they have normalized. They have got Israeli diplomats are still in the UAE, for
Correct. Yeah.
example. So, but they're literally the fact that they're all working in concert. It demonstrates how desperate the Arab bloc
Yeah.
is to call for a ceasefire, to de-escalate.
I understand. But
That's what they're desperately
Zev,
trying to do.
let me go back to you, Zev. Zev, if it's an Emirati charter jet, so Emirati is referring to the Emirates, the UAE, United Arab Emirates, correct? Okay,
Yes,
so
yes.
if it's an Emirati charter company, that will be an Emirati official. A Qatari official would use a Qatari charter company.
Well, look,
No,
no,
not
not necessarily.
necessarily.
It
So
could have.
they've just put their assets at the disposal of the peace process because they're trying to
Okay,
resolve
so
it. So
you'd
whether or
say
not it was a
so
Mossad,
you
the head of Mossad using it or not,
okay.
could have been either of them.
No,
No, Mossad
Mossad.
wouldn't
Okay,
use
first of all,
wouldn't
Mossad
use
would.
an Arab charter company.
No. Mossad would never
No,
use that.
well, they've used
No.
a private strip in Abu Dhabi before to come and
Okay, a
go.
private
So
Yeah,
strip.
but they
Yeah,
wouldn't use the
private
jet.
strip
Yeah,
is
the
very
jet
different.
would be an Israeli
Yeah,
jet. So essentially would be so
absolutely.
Zev, just to conclude, it could be a Qatari or Emirati official, and it was most likely part of the
I think.
negotiation process. Fair?
Well, why can't it be both, right? Why couldn't it have been a somebody from UAE or Emirati who has gone to pick up somebody from Qatar and they go to Israel together? The answer is I don't know. I can't speculate, but
Okay, that's the
uh,
reason I'm asking is that could be linked to another story that the team is looking into. So I appreciate if anyone else has more context in the audience. You guys usually help us with most of the analysis. No, believe it or not, we go through a lot of the comments and DMs, especially comments. So put it there.
and if anyone also, if anyone has any military experience or is in Gaza, if they want to come up to speak, just DM Mario's team
Yeah,
and they'll
DM
let
my
them bring you
account
up.
and the team will check it. Yeah, just to be clear.
Mario, the thing you've got to ask of the military strategists is Human Rights Watch has said that that they're using white phosphorus in Gaza, which is a war crime in a dense area, and they did this in Operation Cast Lead, and they proved that it was happening. It burns. It's an incendiary weapon, and it burns flesh. And so Human Rights Watch have said that they're using it in Gaza. The Israelis are. So that's a key indication that there's a clear intent to contravene the laws, the laws of war, and it is a
Well, it's
really
not
serious
specifically
issue.
banned in all uses, right? So we have to be crystal clear. It is banned. You can't use it against the civilian population, but it does provide great
Right.
illumination. So if there was a hostage rescue or something, it's the middle of the night there. If they're using it to illuminate something, because white phosphorus, if you drop it and you see it in the sky, it turns night into day. but if it's on the ground, it's smoke. So I do take
So,
your point, but
so
we need a little bit more
2008, the
vetting.
Israeli army denied that they ever used it, right? And then Human Rights Watch went to great lengths, so did a big report, and they proved that it was being used. Same situation is happening now. So
So
people
I
are
But
can
there's
I
using
can
it, but
say I
again,
can say something about the phosphor because most of those things coming from the Israeli artillery, and as somebody that was in Lebanon in the 26 war, most of those shells are not commissioned in Israel since about 12 years now.
So Hassan Sitta, the surgeon says he's seen people with coming in children with phosphorus burns. So they are using
Yeah,
it
but are
now.
they using it? So the question
No,
is,
no, 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 no.
okay,
Wait,
okay,
just
okay, go
Marius,
ahead.
just a second. This is this statement saying that somebody saw something. This doesn't cut it, unfortunately. I'm telling you,
So we've got
as
video
somebody.
evidence. We've got
Okay,
the burnt
No,
victims. We've got
pin
Alex.
CCTV
that
footage.
video, and
okay,
we can
hold on.
see
Alex,
it.
Okay, Gerard,
yeah. So Alex,
one
I'll
minute.
give you my 2 cents on this, Alex. The phosphorus, white phosphorus, was used. In my opinion, it was used. I know it was used in certain regions in Lebanon. I think that it's pretty known because there's a lot of footage of it. But the thing is, it's used in open fields. Now, I've seen also footage of it used in Gaza, but I haven't been able to verify that. I don't think if the team has posted anything about it. But the question is, whenever white phosphorus is used, the question is, was it used in an urban area or an open field? Because in an open field, it's there to burn the vegetation. Hadi was explaining it to us, because Hezbollah hide.
Well, it's more than that.
Go ahead, Zev.
Yeah,
But I'm
yeah.
not saying, by the way,
Hold on, it's not.
and maybe what I want to do is if you can explain it further, maybe better than I just did, and then Hadi or someone else. I'm sure Ahmed is still there. I think he's dropped off. Someone else could tell me about the use in civilian areas, especially in Gaza. If you've got more context than that, go ahead, Zev.
I think I have
Right.
a video
So
of it being on the
yeah, hold
ground
on,
in
just 1 minute,
Gaza.
Sierra Girl. Yeah. So you are correct. It can burn vegetation, right? But it is also the primary means of illuminating a dark location. So if you're going to have like a helicopter drop of people right into a certain location, and you want to see if there are enemy combatants on the ground, you will drop white phosphorus, not to burn the vegetation, but to provide illumination. In
But
the
I've seen it
sky,
in the
it might
city. I've seen
excuse.
video of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've seen
Yeah.
video of it in the city, in Gaza, on the ground, in
So
amongst
that being
buildings.
said,
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to
you
you.
can send me
I've got
whatever
it
you'd
right
like.
now.
I'm not a okay, yeah. What I'm saying though is right now there's no electricity in Gaza, right? So you need to be very careful in the exact specific circumstances which these allegations are being made, right? So all those reports, I said I saw something, or I talked to somebody who saw something. Just as everyone from every side here, they want verification. We have to be very careful, right? So if Gaza's in the pitch black right now, if there's a hostage extraction or troops being dropped in from a helicopter or for this or from that, white phosphorus will be used to illuminate the surroundings, right? I'm not saying that it should be used in civilian populations, don't get me wrong. It's just that we have to be careful when we say, I saw this, I saw that. Videos,
May I just
look,
interject
I
for
mean,
a second? I've been listening for a while. I just want to add 2 cents.
well, no, you can in a moment because
Sure.
the other gentleman down there, where is he? Hussein, we were going to go to him
Yeah,
before.
Hussein, Russia, and then you,
Hussein.
Ahmed, and then
Please
Syrian
go.
go. Yeah, so Zev, we'll go to Russia whenever you're ready, Zev. Oh, we'll go to Hussein,
But
sorry.
Mario, before
Yeah, go
that,
ahead, Hadi.
Mario, before
Go
we
ahead.
leave the phosphorus part, I just want to say that yeah, in Lebanon, I'm not gonna speak 2006 stuff because they had worse than that cluster bombs, which is internationally prohibited, and until today, people are dying from the cluster bombs dropped by Israel. But the phosphorus they're dropping now, because now it's the season of the olive oil and the olive trees in Lebanon, so they're dropping them in those areas, and the olive trees are burning. So that's the reason they're dropping them in day, not night. So that's
I
why
didn't
we
know
are
they were
seeing.
dropping it during the
And
day.
in
Are they
19
actually
and
dropping
in
it during the day right now?
1982, when they invaded Lebanon, they did actually, and it's a fact that's been established and talked about. They did actually use phosphorus bombs on civilians that were had to put in water because they were continuously burning. So there is precedent of them using
Be,
some bad stuff. I'm sorry.
I'm,
And
No,
Human
no,
Rights Watch
absolutely.
confirmed this time around.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
I sent you the link,
I
Mario.
appreciate it.
And people have commented on already.
Perfect.
So
I'll check it out.
there's
okay,
many
Can,
videos online
yeah,
already.
perfect. I'll check that out.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead,
so
Zev.
shall we go to Russia or to
Yeah, I'll
Hussein?
go to Hussein on
Russia.
Hezbollah. I think it's good timing as well. But yeah, if anyone has, I think I was talking about this Gaza conflict. I haven't seen anything, but previously I've seen a lot, and I think they've been condemned for it as well. But I probably should be better prepared next time we discuss white phosphorus because.
I would talk after
sorry.
Hussein,
Before we leave the
Mario.
white
I would.
phosphorus discussion, I just have to interject and say I just want everyone to be clear that Israel, there's a lot of opinions and conjecture, but Israel has admitted to using white phosphorus in Gaza in 2008 and 2009. When they used it in Lebanon, They in 2013 they said they're going to stop using it. And just just so we can all be clear, there is both video evidence that is being verified by several human rights organizations of them using it both during the day and at night. And it doesn't matter if they use it in the sky or if they use it on the ground. When you shoot it in a densely populated area, which, as we all know, Gaza is, if not the most densely populated, one of the top 3 in the world, then it's illegal explicitly. There's no differentiation as
Completely agree. Completely
okay,
agree.
so if they are in fact using, and then again, I just want to say, why is the burden of proof when they've bombed hospitals in the past, just like today they bombed the Turkish Friendship Hospital, why, or the Indonesian one, sorry, why is it always that the burden of proof is to give them a pass when they've actually admitted to violating international law and using it in a densely populated area in 2008 and 9?
Well, I
Yeah,
That's
think
the question to
actually
think about.
the burden of proof is when you accuse somebody, you need to prove that you are correct.
Fair enough, but what I'm saying,
yeah.
but what
I
I'm
mean, yeah.
saying is the burden of proof shouldn't be as much on people proving it. If I've never stolen anything, and then I steal something, or there's allegations that I steal something from a shop,
Yeah.
it does make a difference, I think, in the discussion and the narrative and how much time should be spent. If not only there have been allegations and proof that it's been used in multiple countries, but if the actual party that you're accusing has admitted to using it multiple times.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, actually. I think that maybe the difference is why the burden of proof has shifted in situations like this is because you're dealing with a terrorist organization that, is controlling the narrative. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
But I do
But
take
in
your point.
2008, it was the
Yeah.
exact same
Okay.
thing.
So,
In 2008,
yeah.
it's
So
not
I
a,
agree with
yeah,
you.
so
I agree with
there's,
you, but
yeah.
yeah. So
And
We're
it's
not
again,
being
Human
like
Rights
I
controlled.
said,
Watch
Our
too,
narrative is
confirming
not being
both.
controlled by Hamas. Our narrative is not being controlled by Hamas. We are
I didn't say
ordinary
I didn't
civilians.
say your narrative was. I please,
Right.
choose your words a little bit more carefully when you think I said something. That is not what I said. I said a lot of the reporting coming out of the Gaza Strip is absolutely controlled by Hamas because Hamas is the elected government.
Well,
That's what I said. I didn't accuse you.
what we're very lucky about is that the ICRC had a weapons monitor accompany one of the convoys, and they will be asserting this as well. So these are independent people
The,
verifying this information.
if I may, there's
Yeah.
this
So that being said,
BZ.
okay, yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
Sorry,
go ahead, Hala.
no,
Sure.
just something. I'm just reading an article in the Guardian. Israel admits it used phosphorus weapons. The Israeli government has admitted that it used controversial phosphorus weapons in its attacks against targets during its month-long war in Lebanon this summer. Oh, sorry, that was Lebanon. Okay, but
Okay.
Well,
Yes.
but
No.
anyway, I don't want to
That's
repeat myself.
so.
That was Lebanon, and the article that somebody
thank you.
sent me
I
was
mean,
from
I'm
2009.
just putting it out there. That's it.
No, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And thank you for that. So
And
Hussein,
just super
are
quick,
you,
daytime use, Human Rights Watch
okay.
confirmed daytime use on October
Yeah,
11th in Gaza. Daytime
okay.
use.
Yeah. Okay. So Hussein, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the invite.
Hussein,
I
could you please
understand.
excuse me, Hussein, could you do us a favor, introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Hussein Asaf. I'm a Syrian American living in the States right now. And I was involved in the Syrian revolution back in 2011. I was an eyewitness to some of the events that took place since then. And I would just like to throw in my perspective on what's going on. I understand emotions are high at the moment, as with Gaza and everything, and it's important that we ask these questions about what Israel is doing, and you know they're following the international law, war zone law.
So just,
However, I
Hussein,
think
sorry, one quick question, just to make sure I get a fact right. Did you also have an experience with Hezbollah as well, your family?
yes, I did, and that's why I said it's important to throw in my perspective on the issue. At the risk of sounding engaging in whataboutism right now, I think it's important to know that some of the parties that are accusing Israel of using white phosphorus, which I'm not sure if they are or aren't using, have been engaged in war crimes against the Syrian people since 2011. Some of which have been committed against my own family in Syria, and I was very close to the events that took place not to mention the chemical attack that have been committed by the Syrian regime and its partners, the Iranians and its cronies, Hezbollah and the other pro-Iranian militias that have been operating inside Syria. Some of these attacks have been very well documented, and we have seen, and we do have verified, third-party, independent, verified documents and reports proving that. So it's very, very questionable to me when some people, some of which are on the stage right now, they've been known to be an apologist for the Syrian regime and its partners in crime, Hezbollah and Iran, are trying to point some of what Israel is doing right now. So I understand it's important that we all ask questions, and it's important that Israel follows international law when it comes to their operation inside Gaza. But it's also important to understand that some of these cronies are being operated by Iran for their own for their own political expansion agendas, and we need to be aware of that.
Can you?
If I could ask
Could you
you
Yeah,
please
a,
sorry.
stop?
Just yeah, go
Mano,
ahead, Russia.
because I was noticed on his, I document in 2013 with him the things when it comes. I was one of the witnesses when he called us about his grandma when the siege happened by Hezbollah. Could you please, Hussein, tell everybody what's going on when the siege?
Yes, absolutely. Back in 2016, Hezbollah was engaged in besieging a town full of civilians, approximately 40,000 civilians. And when I say besiege, I mean total and complete cutoff from the outside world. Nothing was coming in, no food, no medical supplies, nothing. Until we started seeing people dying, literally dying of starvation, of lack of food, including my own family. This is a war crime that is very well documented by Hezbollah and the Syrian regime, and I am a witness to that. So to me this is it's the epitome of hypocrisy when I see someone who's was very much an apologist for those actions, for those horrendous actions, are trying to stand on any moral ground right now because they do not have any moral grounds to stand on.
I'd like to ask you a question, Hussein. So you're Syrian American, and what was your have you had personal interaction with Hezbollah in the past, like direct one-on-one interaction with them? And if we can expand on that, so what do you think of Hezbollah potentially engaging with the war in Israel? What will it look like? What are the chances? And what is the mentality of Hezbollah like right now, in your opinion? And what's the opinion, like what is in the Syrian community as a whole, where do you think they stand? And I realize that opinions will vary from person to person.
Yes, yeah. My interaction with Hezbollah is when my town was besieged by Hezbollah, and my own family was there, and I was trying to get them out because they were on the verge of dying from starvation. And I've seen with a very close proximity uh, what they did, and that included indiscriminate shelling, like I mentioned before, the besieging of the town. They saw firsthand civilians were dying every day, and they did not care. Uh, and of course, all the other atrocities they've committed against other towns as well uh, inside of Syria. So I'm an eyewitness to that. As far as the potential Hezbollah involvement in the war right now, I think Hezbollah operates under the direct command of the Iranian regime, the mullah regimes, and they will do whatever is requested of them. I don't think, my personal opinion, I don't think they will fully engage with Israel right now because uh, as we all know, they're using the Palestinian cause as a pretext for their own Iranian expansion agenda. And I don't think it's in their best interest to engage with Israel right now. So I think they will continue to do these half measures on the northern Israeli border, but I don't think they will fully engage with Israel in a full-fledged attack. As far as the Syrians' opinions on that goes, most Syrians do realize that Hezbollah is a worse, much worse uh, um, player in the region than Israel is, and they see it as basically an arm of Israel, of Iran in the region, and most of them, especially after 2011, most of them do not believe the propaganda that's propagated by Hezbollah.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Can
So
I
we're
ask
going to go.
Hussein a
So,
question?
Two
Can I
seconds.
ask Hussein a
Question.
hold
question?
on, hold
Yeah,
on,
go
hold
and
on.
go to
I want
Hadi.
him.
Yeah, go ahead, Hadi.
I want him
Yeah.
to speak. It's fine. I just want to ask Hassan, are you talking about the decision of Madaya? Just asking.
Yes, I am Madaya and Zabadani.
Okay. I'm so sorry to have you found. Of course, the Syrian people for me, they're I consider my people as all that, but I have to refute a lot of things you said, and that's a big topic. I'm not gonna open into details right now. What happened in Madaya was very tragic, but you cannot just blame everything on Hezbollah and the Syrian military when Madaya was also controlled by groups like Al Nusra, and you cannot deny that. And you cannot deny that the UN was there on the ground. I was there on the ground actually, and I have videos to prove it. When the UN was actually allowing aid to come in, but Al Nusra was refusing for the aid to come in until they some aid Qaria al Fu'a comes in as well. So there was like a lot of crimes committed by also the groups that were controlling Madaya, and there were videos of women in Madaya saying that they're not giving us the aid that the UN is sending. I'm not discrediting you in some ways. I know that what you went through might be bad. The Sri was horrific, and a lot of things happened, but we cannot just come here without sources, stock our, we all have personal opinions, we all have personal experiences. I have personal experience from the Syrian what you call opposition groups. They bombed Beirut, that's why Hezbollah went in. They threatened us, they threw missiles on our villages, car bombs were sent to our towns. So we have experiences as well, but we don't talk about them here because everyone here is gonna come. I've been through that, I've been through that.
But if you
But
allow me a quick comeback,
yeah,
sir,
of course, go ahead.
with all due respect, Al Nusra was not inside Madaya. That is absolutely incorrect. What was inside Madaya is a group called Ahrar al-Sham, which is different than Al Nusra.
But you
And
do
yes,
know Ahrar al-Sham are linked to Al
this,
Qaeda as well, right?
no, they're not. Ahrar
Yes,
al-Sham was never linked to. Okay, that is besides the point. What was linked to Al Qaeda is Al Nusra, which was not inside Madaya. Ahrar al-Sham, which is 90%, which at the time 90% of their members were actually people from Madaya. There were no outside members. They were, yes, I do agree with you that these groups are ideologically motivated, Islamically motivated, but they were people of the town. They were not outsiders. And no, they did not kill their own people. They did not deny the aid to their own people. The ideologically kidnapping of the Syrian uprising is a different topic for a different day. But I do submit to you that they were not controlled by Al Qaeda.
All right.
And
I just have a question for you. I'm actually always interested in asking Syrian people from the opposition side. It's not for you. It's asking like your opinion on it. Some people on your side believe that Israel and Hezbollah are somehow doing all this as a play and they're not actually enemies. What are your thoughts on that? I know you don't think that probably, but I'm just asking you because you probably know that some people say
I,
that.
I do not think that. There are some people who sadly believe in these conspiracy theories. I am not one of them, and they're easily refutable.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Thank you so much. I'm just curious, and I want to be clear. I'm not trying to worry about any of this, but I became friends with some lovely Syrian people when I was in Jordan that I'm still talking to now, just like the last couple of days about all this stuff. And I always found it pretty amazing. I also met a bunch of Yemenis over there in Jordan, and the Syrians and the Yemenis I talked to in particular have this kind of attitude where they do care about the Palestinian people, they care about the Palestinian cause, but there's this kind of feeling that they conveyed to me, a bunch of them, where it was like, there's a ton of us dying here in Syria, there's a ton of us dying here in Yemen. Where are the protests? Where's the level of outrage when maybe 10 or 20 Palestinians get killed, or something happens at Al Aqsa, but hundreds of thousands of your people and Yemenis. And again, I'm not trying to what about. I'm not saying that any of this justifies what's going on in Gaza. I'm just saying emotionally, how does it feel for a lot of Syrians and yourself personally when there just did not seem to be the same level of public support for your slaughter and your death? I'm just curious as to your thoughts on that.
Thank you so much for asking this very important question. We feel appalled by the sense of, I want to call it hypocrisy, that is shown by a lot of the uh, so-called activists, Palestinian cause activists in the West, especially Europe and America, who have either turned a blind eye to what the Syrian regime and their partners in crime, Hezbollah and the Iranians behind them, have been doing to the Syrian people since 2011, which, by any sense of the word, supersedes what Israel did in all of their 75 years plus occupation era. We just see that as appalling, and uh, there's not words to describe how much their regime has gotten away with war crimes without any serious sense of the word accountability of any sort, while Israel is being under a very, very close magnifying glass for every action they do. As well they should. I'm not saying they shouldn't. But if we are to be fair in any sense of the word, we need to be looking at what the people who are accusing Israel right now have been doing since 2011. So yeah,
Yeah,
we feel
And I'm so
betrayed.
sorry, brother. I'm so sorry that you went through
yeah.
all that.
So
And welcome to America. I'm so sorry,
Just
yeah,
really.
absolutely.
just a
So
second,
okay, hold on.
Hassan.
Yeah, go ahead,
Just
Hadi.
because we need to keep it balanced and not get into more detail. Hassan, of course, we get the chance to respond. Let's go another perspective on
Syrian
Syria,
girl.
and then we go to
I knew
Russia,
it.
and
Heidi has a crush on Syrian
yeah,
girl, I
and
think.
then we go to Russia, just so we can keep it balanced. There's
Heidi
too much
only I like
information.
Heidi jumps in. Every time Heidi jumps in to give the mic to someone,
Listen,
90%
Mario, I'm
chance it's
like
Syrian girl. Syrian girl, just I don't know. You gotta
Mario.
connect.
No, I'm like Hezbollah. I'm silent. I only join in the accurate
Yeah,
time. So Syrian girl and
I'll
then Russia,
connect
so we
you.
can
I'll
hear both.
connect you. I'll connect you guys on WhatsApp.
That's a good
I'll
start.
connect you guys on WhatsApp. Go ahead, Syrian girl.
Hi, Mario. Yeah, our history with a lot of people in this group goes very far back during the Syrian war. So this is what we know. So thank you so much. I do think we should get this perspective from the another Syrian, since we're talking about sympathies for the Syrian people. And I wonder if Brian would extend those sympathies to the fact that, like, Syria is currently under heavy sanctions to the point where they have food insecurity, as stated by the UN. The US is occupying the oil fields and denying us energy. And as a result of that, a lot of Syrians in the cold weather are dying. And in fact, a lot of Syrians in the hot weather are also dying, like my grandmother, for example, who died of a heart attack and heat stroke because there wasn't any water or electricity because of the US sanctions and the occupation of the oil fields. I wonder if that sympathy was applied by Brian to people who were murdered by Al Qaeda groups which the US backed. And this is something that this is a great point that Hussein brought up, because a lot of the Israeli media are trying to portray the war against Palestine as like a war against an Islamist thing. And you had a guy here talking about ISIS and Al Qaeda. The fact is that Ahrar al-Sham was founded by a member of Al Qaeda. The biggest rebel group in Syria is Jabhat al-Nusra, which is Al Qaeda. As per the United States admissions, the Hillary Clinton leaks, which was shown on WikiLeaks, said that Al Qaeda is on our side in Syria, and yet, we had this guy saying that ISIS and Al Qaeda are threatening Israel. Look, Hussein said Hezbollah is worse than Israel to the Syrians. I'm looking at even the areas controlled by the rebel groups are currently protesting in support of Palestine. So the other thing is the claim that they're fighting Islamic terrorism and ISIS. ISIS has never attacked Israel, and in fact, in 2016, they released an article saying why Palestine is not Muslims' primary cause. Another thing is that ISIS, when it did accidentally clash with Israeli defense forces, the defense minister Moshe Yalon said that they apologized. Also, the defense minister Yalon also said he prefers an Islamic State to Iran in Syria. So the fact is, Israel is 100% preferring ISIS and Al Qaeda to Iran and Syria. And it's no coincidence that these Al Qaeda, ISIS guys were fighting Israel's enemies. The fact, the irony here is they're talking about we're fighting Islamic terrorism, Meanwhile, Jared Kushner is saying Saudi Arabia is safer than New York. And we all know that Saudi Arabia and Qatar were the biggest financiers of these ISIS terrorists. So they're kind of speaking again in forked tongues. We all know what happened with the chemical attacks and how they were exposed as false flag operations. This is very well known history, which we can get into if need be. And we also have to put that in context of the fact that, we here on this very platform, we're talking for hours and hours about how there's this video of the light in the sky, which supposedly was a wayward Hamas or Islamic uh, state, well, not Islamic State, Islamic Jihad missile, which was then debunked, and now they're just blatantly admitting to wanting to bomb hospitals
Wait,
on
what was debunked? Sorry, what was debunked?
the video where there was this light in the sky and they said, oh, this is a wayward missile from Islamic Jihad. All of these us int guys
The
coming
hospital? Are
in
you talking about
here.
the hospital? The strike on the
Yeah, the
hospital?
Baptist hospital, like all of that,
Yeah,
our
that
stance
wasn't
on
debunked. No,
that
no, no. Hold on,
was
Syrian. That
debunked.
wasn't debunked. No,
This
that wasn't debunked. No, no, no.
by
Just
New York
hold
Times,
on.
it was debunked by New York
Okay, okay.
Times.
Because the New York, no, 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 no. Because the New York Times said something, also doesn't mean that that is true, right? The New York Times also said that Donald Trump colluded with Russia. That was proven by
Okay, but
a lot
you're
of.
saying all of
No,
this,
no.
but you're also
Hold on,
saying that
Syrian
you want
girl,
to bomb. Okay,
Syrian
fine.
girl,
Go ahead.
Syrian girl. Okay, you can't say something has been debunked, disputed. Sure, you cannot say it was debunked based on a New York Times article, right? When you have military experts saying the opposite. Disputed, I don't even agree with that, but I will give you that. But you cannot say debunked, right?
Okay,
That's a
well,
fair statement.
sorry, I'm gonna say debunked because that's what I think happened. But
Well,
you
I
can
think it
more
was,
than
well,
welcome
I
to
would
say
say it was,
disputed if you wish.
well, no, I believe it was debunked too. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. Where are the fragments of the rocket, right? Why was everything cleaned up so quickly? Wouldn't they be
Because the
parading on
air
all the,
blast J down.
oh, God almighty. In any
But
case, we can
Why the
disagree on
hospital
that.
is still standing?
okay, well,
Since
because it was
she mentioned me,
targeted
may I
to the
respond
car
after?
park.
No,
Here's
Brian,
the thing.
hold on.
Here's the
So,
thing.
I
We're
want to move
talking
away
okay,
from
go
about
ahead,
that.
this.
Yeah,
Syrian
go ahead.
girl.
We're talking about this in context of the fact that we know that Israel has bombed a hospital today and wants to bomb hospitals. Like, are we taking crazy pills here? I just don't understand what the premise is. Finally, I just want to say that clearly what's happening right now, like there's 3,000 dead children confirmed. Say the children said that the number of children killed in just the last 3 weeks in Gaza is more than the number killed in armed conflicts globally for the last 3 years. So, anyone trying to say claim that one war is worse than this war is blatantly incorrect. And the reason why they're doing this is because they can't gain a military strategic victory over Hamas. So they have to inflict the maximum amount of human cost in order to retain some kind of a win in their minds. And there's no tunnels under the hospitals. Why is it so every single tunnel has a
How do you
Hamas
prove that? How can you
bunker?
prove that, though?
How do
Wait,
you
wait.
prove that there is? How do you prove that there? How do you prove that
No,
there
no, no,
is?
no, no. You said, no, hold on. I can't prove that there is, but you said there are no
Yeah, but
tunnels.
you're the
By
ones that
what?
want to bomb the hospital, so you got to the onus is on you. If you want to bomb a hospital, you better have proof there's a
So
bunker
it's
under
not
it.
me. I'm not bombing anyone, right? But you just said that there are no tunnels under the hospital. How can you make that claim with 100%
How
certainty?
do you
Just
make
as
okay? How do you
I'm
make the
about to
claim there's
answer
not?
you, Syrian girl. Syrian girl, I cannot say with 100% certainty that there are tunnels under it. I am not in the military, so I don't know. But either do you.
Yeah, but I don't believe the people saying it. I don't believe
Well,
the
I don't
people that
believe
are
the
saying
people that
it.
And
are
many
saying.
people don't
Hold on.
believe the other way. Yeah.
Well, I have to
Right.
have
So
evidence to make a belief of something, right?
But
Before I
by
believe
okay,
the way,
something,
but
it
I
has
have
to
to
be
have evidence.
evidence.
But I have to have evidence to prove that the point contrary to what I believe.
No,
by the
no,
way,
in science, which I am a scientist, before we make a theory, we
Weren't you
have to have,
weren't you
we
a
can't believe in
pilot a
No,
couple
no,
of
something
no,
days
no.
without
ago?
experimental
Rega, we don't need to go
evidence
into personal attacks here.
to,
Go ahead, Syrian
I
girl.
was just running about the hospital. I
without
was writing a whole
evidence
thing
of
about the
some, we
hospital.
can't
Okay, Brian,
get
can
Yeah.
you,
these
Brian, just if you want to
experiment.
speak, can you put your hand up? Syrian girl, let's
Guys.
move away
Yeah,
from the
guys.
hospital.
All right,
I
let's
want
let's
to,
go to Russia. Let's go to Russia because
yeah.
we need to keep it balanced, so you don't say I'm biased. Let's
Go
go
ahead, Russia.
Russia.
No, no, Hadi, by the way,
By
Hadi,
the
Guys,
by the way,
I think you're good.
guys.
nobody answered my question as to why they don't carry the attack just at the hospital if there are these tunnels and forget the rest of the
I've
city,
answered,
etc.,
I'll
etc.
answer that again. So
Oh,
I will,
maybe I missed it because I
That's a
got
guess. Okay, go
No,
disconnected.
no,
ahead.
no, no,
Maybe
no.
you
You
can
okay,
didn't
answer
miss
it.
it. You didn't miss it. Zev started to talk. You were unable to
okay.
hear it, and
Okay,
we kind of stopped the conversation
Go
there.
ahead, Zev.
Yeah,
okay,
okay, I'll just,
thanks.
right. So listen, I think that by trying to have the people evacuate from the hospital, that does basically seem that they were trying to evacuate people from the hospital, firstly. Secondly, to launch a ground incursion into Gaza City, into the hospital, presents a lot of risks to the IDF right now, and I don't think they're completely prepared and trained to do that. So that would be my explanation. But we can come back to that. Rasha, as another Syrian, I'm wondering if you have any response to Syrian girl.
Yeah, first of all,
Go ahead, sure.
thank you very. Don't worry, I'm professional when it comes to this. First of all, let us make it peaceful. Then the audience can, enjoy listening to all of us without, like being so much hyper or aggressive. First of all, I do agree. Let me talk to the point for Palestine Gaza because I was hearing for you 2 hours. Then we're gonna go back to the Syrian girl allegation, which I'm gonna discuss thought, not her personal. Thank you very much. First of all, as far for Gaza, Palestine, I want to thank Brian, Hoshi, and also Sameh, because Sameh, he was talking about a very important a point that we, even in UN and even in the Security Council, even in the international law, you can have a resistance. But when it comes to kidnapping hostages, Mario, could you please turn off its echo, always coming back and forth? Thank you. When it comes to doing hostages and etc., going right away to Terrorism Act. And this is, we have to put it in our consideration that the resistance between two quotation Hamas, I consider it right now a terrorist group, not a resistance. Before, maybe it was, but right now, killing parents in front of their kids and kidnapping civilians, entering their homes. This is like it's approach to war crimes. Let's go now back to Israel. Israel also the start, it's not a start from October 7th. There is a lot of violation from Israel back from 1967 when the Security Council start 242. No one like, there is a lot of things we should discuss why it didn't been applied. Because the Security Council solution 242 was in returning the occupied lands plus doing the settlement refugees. When also Accord happened in 1993 or so, it's collapsing after when Clinton, when Rabin been died, and then Hamas attacked Fatah and etc. So also it's been collapsed. Then we go to Camp David failed and etc. to the state solution right now after it, which we are seeking for. I think Palestine, Palestinian people suffered a lot. And the report in 23 of October we have from International Human Rights, they said exactly that what's going on in Gaza right now is going up to war crimes from Israel. So they should be not doing violation for the international humanitarian law, period. What Hershey said, what Sameh, what Brian, I really second with them. Even with Syrian Gear, I second her with when it comes to a humanitarian should be going to the Palestinian, no question about it. As far as the allegation, there is some Hamas under the building or the hospital. They can, Israel can cooperate with the committee from international law and send a, independent committee from the Security Council or the UN, and they can investigate. But bombing the hospital right away, it's really unethical, unmoral, and violation for the international human law, period. I mean, I'm not going to discuss this. Now, let me go. I want to please tell the solution. I heard you a lot. My solution from that, and as a Syrian American, that American administration failed a lot. I'm sorry to say this. They have a lot of money and smart people, but they failed in the foreign policy, whether in Syria, in Libya, in Iraq, in Pakistan, even in Palestine, in Lebanon. So I think Netanyahu right now, he should discuss what is his priority. His priority is the hostages. And the Palestinian people, their priority is ceasefire. So we have, first of all, to make a conference, international conference, between Biden, Mahmoud Abbas, and maybe Saudi Arabia and other countries, and also the leaders from Israel, and start talking about the negotiation when it comes to release hostages with a deal. Maybe Hamas get out from Gaza, maybe I don't know, but should be a deal. And there should be army. When I said army of international lawyers. They have to review all the data from the Security Council and the UN and see what is the violation. And if they didn't want to go up before October 7, let's do it here. Are we going to recognize Palestine finally as a security of state? And as far for the allegation, I'm sorry, Palestinian, my friend here, you have to hear this from me. I am, as a Syrian American, came here before 20 years ago. I never thought about it like American people should give the between two quotation, stolen land to the original Indian, because it's not for their land. This is not going to work. Israel has been recognized before Palestinian Liberation Organization and Yasser Arafat and the United Nations and the General Assembly. This is first. As far for the refugee settlement, I totally agree. When Syrian girl, she said she appointed a very good point when it comes. Here we go, Russia. What we're gonna do? Yes, they can do a settlement or they can negotiate it. We can do a special committee for that. We can settle this. But Israel has been recognized as a state of democracy a long time ago. It's period. You cannot go back, revoke it. And matter of fact, if you go to any court in the United States and you file a motion in the front of the judge, you told him, hey, before 30 years, I have this. He told you, sorry, it's done. You have, for example, 30 days to object it. It's too late right now. This is first. I know maybe it's unfair, but this is how it is. In life, we have so many things is unfair. And besides, we have to move on and end the suffer and seeking for peace. I think from my perspective, and I am sorry, don't think me wrong, please, guys, Palestinian, but I think Hamas, there is nowhere going to be good for the Palestinian, exactly for Netanyahu, I don't think, in matter of fact, Netanyahu, when the Goldstone reported from, the UN back in 2009, he is the one who did also some obstacle against it. So I think right now we have to know, and Hamas, in matter of fact, they said like, oh, there is error in the report, which Goldenstone he did it and he opposed it, and the same thing Netanyahu. So I think Hamas and Netanyahu, they can't represent their own people. I think there is a legal channel. We should have an army of international lawyers being involved, human rights lawyers. There is a political channels where should be payas, and they should be putting the life matter for Israeli and Palestinian in the top of their priority, not putting here and there for others. And in the third, we have social workers but the most important one, please, I might finish. We have the transitional justice
Just
law.
quickly,
This one didn't apply.
Rasha, it's important. I need to know that you will finish, not might. I just need to have that surety. Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
definitely. I
Yeah,
will
please.
now when
Thank you.
when it comes to the Syrian girl points, I disagree with her when it comes. Most of the Syrian oppositions are extremists. No, this is not the true. I totally agree with you when Jabhat al-Nusra Syrian girl. I totally agree with you when the even the army under the Turkish. I am against them, by the way, just for your record. So I am now against Assad regime, against the Syrian opposition extremists, and I am in the middle. In matter of fact, chemical weapons has been confirmed that Assad regime use it by UN and Security Council. They relieve a state committee solution for that. As far for the backup, in matter of fact, we have. Thank you so much, Brian, that you brought it up. We have 13 years, more than 1 million Syrians have been killed. And we have over like 500 Syrians been in prison. 13 millions
So
being displaced. So what I'm trying to tell you
yeah,
here right now,
so
just
Yeah, go on.
I'm gonna finish it.
Please, yeah, because you've made so many
Yes, I'm
points that we
gonna
don't have to
finish it.
respond to.
I'm
That's okay.
sorry.
You're a great
Here,
speaker, but
even
it's a lot there.
thank you, but because I'm an attorney from Syria, what I'm trying to tell you, either we are finding you so pro-Israel or so pro-Palestine, either so pro-Assad or so pro Syrian opposition. We have to be think and logical, put our humanity in the top of the table, and the law and the political solution, and seek for peace. We have to seek for peace. Thank
Not
you.
at all. Zev, go ahead.
no, I think that's no, I think so. For me, it's incredibly fascinating to watch, right? So when people talk about Israel, right, you'll have 10 different Israelis on a space, and you'll have 10 different political viewpoints. Certain people have tried to say, well, listen, all of Syria is united in this way or that way. Well, that's not true, because even on this space, you have three Syrians who have three different points of view. All points, it's not completely monolithic. I think it's very important to hear these different points of view. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Now, Syrian girl, I know you wanted to respond, and of course you can. Let's just try to be brief. Syrian girl, go ahead.
Thanks. Just very, very briefly. Yeah, the OPCW committee that was investigating the chemical attacks, they said that they were forced into bias, especially with the last investigation. The first chemical attack in Syria was actually against the Syrian government-held area in Aleppo. And that is why the OPCW arrived on the same day as the chemical attack in Damascus, which is very suspicious. But finally, I just want to say about the opinion of Syrians. You know, we have Syrians on this space, but that's only 3 Syrians. Look at the Syrians on the street in Syria. Even in the rebel-held areas, they're flying the flag of Palestine. So please, guys, let's like not say that our opinion
Well,
is the top opinion of all
okay,
Syrians. We don't
I
represent
agree
all
with you.
Syrians.
No, I agree with you. But here's a question. So, how many protesters would you say that are protesting the streets of Syria? How many? About?
In both the only protests that have been held are in both the government held areas and the rebel controlled areas, and both of them have been flying the Palestinian flag
Right.
and pushing for the Palestinian cause. That is
Right.
Syria, guys. This is the
No,
Syrian
okay,
people.
but the question would be, how many people are not protesting?
I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. There's a
Well,
lot of
what's the
I can
protesting
answer.
now.
population?
I can
You know,
answer
I'll
that.
tell you that
Basically,
in Lebanon,
Okay, so
and in
Hadi,
Syria, after
Syria, okay.
okay, okay.
after
Let's
Nasrallah's speech, you're gonna see millions on the street. Hadi.
okay. Let me answer that. For example, the situation in Syria completely different, of course, the situation in Lebanon, because Lebanon has a different history, different demographic, different religions, different sects. We're different in every way from the region, the entire region. So in Lebanon, you can say that there are regions that they prefer not to support neither the Palestinians, neither the Israelis. They're just like on the side. They just want neutrality, Lebanon first, all these hashtags and all that. You can say that
What
in Lebanon.
percentage would you put that at, Hadi? I'm actually
In Lebanon,
honestly
to be honest,
curious. Yeah.
I'm gonna be frankly, if you want to like say what kind of Lebanese, I would say around 30% of Lebanese they would rather not have anything to do with any of that. But that doesn't mean they're with Israel. They just don't want to have.
No,
They have
absolutely.
they have their own reasons why to hate Israel. They hate, but they have their own reasons different than the other Lebanese. In Syria, you look at cities, you look at who's holding in the opposition or the rebel held or whatever you want to call them terrorists. I'm not gonna, because I don't want to disrespect people here, but uh, uh, in their areas and the government held areas, you'll see people in each city on the streets supportive of Palestine. In the rebel held area, for example, in Idlib, let's say, you've seen massive protests. They're supporting the cause, and a lot of their journalists are actually now speaking up and they're supporting what happened on October 7 and saying all that. So it's not. It's this is like, what do you call it? This is the streets view. Our opinions, me personally as well, I don't speak for all Lebanese. I don't speak for everyone who supports Hezbollah. I don't speak for anyone. No one here does. So I'm just saying what we see on the streets and what we see, like the what do you call it, the public opinion. That's all.
If I may,
And I,
for the majority of Syrian, it's also even in the Arab world and Syria in particular as well. I mean, before the war, what Syria was and the fact that it was, leading the Arab world in many ways. But for many of them, the Palestinian issue is a cause. It's a cause they're born into. They learn it from when we're young. We all heard about the Palestinian problem, the Palestinian cause, the land that was taken, their plight. So yes, Syria, no matter what their issues are between them, between each other, there is one common denominator, and they're all for Palestine. And this is not to say that they're supporting Hamas or what Hamas did or didn't do. That's besides the point. It is about the Palestinian cause. Hamas comes to it in many ways, for many people, as and bear with me here, for many people they see them as a resistance. Now, October 7, and some of the crimes that they did, because there were crimes when they went into houses and shot civilians. That's another issue altogether. But the bulk of the group is still seen as a resistance that's fighting for freedom, for the rights, for basic human rights that anyone in the world, even in the worst places in the world, have them, but not in Gaza. And in
no,
Syria, you can see that.
I just want one quick final question. So, are the people that are protesting for the Palestinian cause in Syria, are they pro-Assad as the majority, or?
No, that's what
Well,
I said. When I say the opposition
no.
area, that means the areas that are against Assad. So the Idlib area is
Okay, okay,
completely
okay.
against Assad. So and you had in the government held area in Aleppo and Damascus, you had in Deir Zur, you had in Suwaida as well. Suwaida are actually
May I
they're
respond to
protesting
that,
recently
please?
against Assad, and they still went down
I
and
don't, I
protested
don't,
for
wanna, I don't want
Palestine.
to get into too much in the weeds. Actually, I want to ask a separate question. Just Rasha, you've just given a lot of insight, a lot of historical knowledge as well, and good to know that you're an attorney in Syria. Seeing the clashes and just focusing.
No, she's in the United
Oh, you're an
States.
attorney in.
Russia's not in
Oh, you're in
Syria.
the U.S., Russia.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
Ahmad.
okay. I apologize. I thought you said you're a Syrian attorney. But just going back to the Syrian attacks on or attacks on U.S. bases in Syria and Iraq, I'm trying to decipher on how you know how to how to how to interpret this. Like, is Iran just trying to do the bare minimum where they respond and they show solidarity with Hamas without actually escalating the situation? Or are these attacks, which are, I think they're increasing, and they're pretty much daily attacks now, are they signaling that Iran could be increasing the attacks from other proxies as well, like Hezbollah, and continuing to support Hamas if this continues? Because they've talked about a red line being crossed multiple times now, and it seems that red line, if you want to take their word seriously, that red line has been crossed according to what they've said. Would love your thoughts on that particular point.
It hasn't, Mario, it hasn't been crossed.
Who said that?
Let me,
Yeah.
I said
Yeah,
that.
so Rash, I'll let you respond, and then we'll go to Hala afterwards, please.
Yes, don't worry. Don't worry. I do believe that they're gonna escalate more in the future, and this gonna be back and forth. Iran will goes through her tails, which channels, allies, whatever you wanna rename it, Hamas and Houthi, and we saw the Houthi like attacking right now 4 soldiers from Saudi Arabia, and also we have Hezbollah is going. But Hezbollah, as I told you before, he will not be involved in that war right now because at least he needs at least 30,000 billions, which he cannot afford it. But he's going to use everything like small here and there, like attacks through his militia, through also Iran. Don't forget also, we have in October 18, the trade of missiles technology has been the restriction in the UN was lifted. And also the UN restrictions on Iran ballistic missiles program have been lifted. So now the EU and USA and UK, that they still having the sanctions because they are afraid that Iran will transfer. Don't forget also that Iran annually they are transferred 700 millions to their tails, within 100 million at least to Hamas, and they also supported Hamas right away before in the technology and the equipment to build the rocket. So I think this, yes, they will escalate it and they will still there, but USA is ready, and they warned Iran if anything happens, it will go very, very
No, I
large.
appreciate it, Rasha.
Yes.
I do want to go to Hala and then Ridvan. Hala, you said they will not, I think you said they will not escalate it. Would love to get your thoughts, a bit more information on why you think that.
No. I was responding to what you were saying, that yes, there has been increases in various attacks coming from various countries that are part of this axis, part of the axis of resistance. But you were saying that you think that the red line has crossed. I'm saying the red line has not crossed. That red line has not been crossed, and there's a lot more for that red line. It has. It's not that I don't want to. I can't explain it. It's like I'm unable to explain it at the moment for many reasons. But that red line has not been crossed.
What happens? So Hala, what do you think that red line is, and what happens when it's crossed? How do we know when it's crossed? Because I don't expect a sudden. Would you expect Hezbollah to just join the war with a massive barrage of rockets and then suddenly a lot of attacks on US bases in Syria? How would the response be if that red line is crossed? Or will it be gradual escalations as we've been seeing very slowly over the last few weeks?
It would be gradual escalation as we're seeing. But again, if a particular, I mean, again, it's not necessarily with each and every one of them, because the various countries are geographically in various places as well, irrespective of the military capability that they have, or the rockets, or the missiles, or whatever they have. The main question that's on everyone's mind is, will Hezbollah escalate, as in have a full-fledged war with Israel, like, for example, that's what happened between the two sides in 2006. At the moment, the reading is that's not the case. They were and this is from both sides, by the way. The red line, like I said yesterday or last night or whenever it was, there is a reason each of these axes needs the other to be standing strong and standing and surviving. Definition of survivor, I don't have it, they do. I mean, so it's a case of surviving. They won't allow for Hamas to fall, and Iran, I don't think, will allow for Hamas to fall, and the rest of the axis of resistance do not want Hamas to fall. So this is one of the main things that they are reading and looking at, and pending that, That's how the escalations come and the involvement comes. But it's not a case of, like tomorrow or the day after something is gonna, I don't know what happens. They go, let's say Israel bombs another, sorry guys, I'm using it just as pretext, no offense meant to anybody, but they go and bomb something like drastic, or they create another, or they kill for some reason, I don't know how many, and it's a huge thing. That's not something that's going to drive a massive escalation. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, just on that point, just now came in. So the UN envoy to Syria warns that this current crisis in the Middle East threatens to unleash an escalation of violence in Syria, which is unprecedented, experiencing its worst surge in conflict in 3 years. And there's this particular quote: "Spillover into Syria is not just a risk; it has already begun." And that's from the UN envoy.
In what way?
I'm just checking now. It doesn't. This is the quote. I've just got the quote out of it here.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to understand. Is he talking about? I don't know if anybody here can help. If he's talking about internal escalation, or he's talking about Israel and Syria escalation.
So this is so just to confirm who that is. This is Geir Peterson, who's United States Special Envoy for Syria. But what's the question that you had? Sorry.
I said the quote that the statement that you just read, when he's talking about escalation, the spillover or the escalation in Syria, is he talking about internal escalation, as in another war within Syria itself between the Syrians, or he's talking about an escalation between Syria and Israel?
No, escalation. I think. Let me just go back to the quote here. An escalation of violence in Syria, which is experiencing its worst surge in conflict in 3 years. I think he's referring to a conflict within Syria, an internal conflict. Is that a possibility?
Because there isn't any big conflict happening right now internally in Syria.
Yeah.
So
I don't understand how that is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Anyone?
So I'm not sure he's referring maybe to the U.S. bases. I'm just trying to get the link to the exact quote.
Yeah, he's probably
Mario?
referring to the US bases attack on
It's the speech that was given in the UN. The link is there for the news. So it's basically you have all these groups. You have Iranian proxies. You have the attacks on the US. It's the fear of this spillover of this war, Israel and Palestine, into Syria in different ways. That's the idea.
Okay.
I will send the full speech.
Am I muted this whole time? I'm speaking. Hashar, I was just speaking to myself. Hashar, what I was saying is that, so he's referring to internal conflict within Syria, or clashes, Syria and US bases clashing?
So the key word is spillovers, the spillover from this war. So you've already seen attacks on US bases, on some oil and gas facilities. You've seen Israel targeting, different places within Syria. This could also lead to other extremist groups that have been silent for a while to also get involved. So because of this war in Israel and Palestine, Syria could again, sink into another round of violence where you have different groups with different agendas targeting each other.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, if you can send me through the full speech, Hashar, would be great via WhatsApp.
Sure,
and Charles, since you're here, we've seen the attacks on US bases in Syria and Iraq are still continuing. Ridwan, I'll go to you after Charles. I would love to get your thoughts, man. It's been a while we haven't heard your thoughts on this. Charles, you there?
I haven't followed the attacks closely.
They're still the same bases, same level of attacks. Just the same tit for tat.
For me, it's weird because when I was in Afghanistan, we were rocketed 3 times a day, and we just got used to it. So it's a different operational environment than what I'm used to, right? So for me, it's normal, but I don't know the current operational environment and what the threat risk has been like in the last 4 or 5 years in the Middle East.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And is there any specific, what are some specific red lines that will be out of the norm for this region? Now, just to on the record, we've had other analysts on stage, that level of attacks, or that frequency of attacks, and Hashar can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but that frequency of attacks is not that common. There's always attacks, but it's always generally triggered by other geopolitical events. Hashar, is that true? And is there any there's only a deviation of the frequency of these attacks? And I'll ask a question to you and Charles afterwards.
Jake Sullivan was criticized because he said the Middle East has been quiet for some time. So that was actually true. In Iraq, for example, you had a new government, so there were no attacks on any U.S. bases or, for example, diplomatic facilities, which was very frequent in the past. In Syria, and that's mentioned in the speech that was given by the UN Syrian envoy that we discussed a moment ago. You have kind of had a strategic stalemate. That's the expression used, where every side kind of prefer to not start violence again. Lebanon has mainly dealt with a huge financial crisis. Basically, the economy has tanked, there was no indication of violence. Other countries, as we have been discussing, were normalizing relations with Israel. So it has not been frequent, and you could say that there was a catalyst. That's why the UN envoy to Syria is saying the only solution to this, the only anecdote to this problem in Syria is a ceasefire in the war that's happening now.
And Craig, any other comments on this particular point before we go to Ridvan? Ridvan, go ahead. Oh, sorry, good.
I think a true escalation would be a nation state on nation state action. We have been doing this proxy war with Iran for for almost 20 years now. So as long as proxies keep attacking us, it's just steady state. If Iran were to shoot missiles at us, or Iran were to send troops against us, that's a red line that would move the needle into a true war. But as long as it stays proxies, I don't think much is going to change.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Ridvan, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me. So I just want to comment on a few things that were said earlier about why people react so much to the whole Israel-Palestine conflict, but they don't react very much to other conflicts that happen in Syria or in Yemen or other regions. It's true. Lots of people come out. Everybody, the whole world is now talking about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Although we've had worse conflicts happening in much more intense ways over the last 2 decades, and they didn't attract nearly as much attention or as much emotional attachment. The issue with the whole Israel-Palestine thing is how people often talk about what the world should do, what kind of ceasefire should be reached, and all of that. Israel will probably not listen to what people around the world are saying, and because Israel has this mindset of being basically being alone against a lot of people who hate Israel in the world, and rightly so, because and you can also see that right now when especially the Arab world and the Muslim world unites against Israel and even sides with Iran, which is extremely unpopular in the Middle East. They are aware, and they have been sharing it on the IDF page, on the Israel X page, and on many other channels. They have been sharing Hamas leaders and how they have been, trying to rile up Muslims around the world with this Islamic rhetoric of this is an Islamic mission, this is jihad, this is a Muslim's duty. We have to all come together. We have to have the final battle. We have to defeat the Jews and get them out of here. Like in the public declarations, you don't often hear Jews mentioned. It's more the Zionist entity or Israel and all that. But when they speak to their own people directly, you often hear Jews. And we have speeches from just 2 years ago, where senior Hamas officials called on Muslims in Jerusalem and Muslims around the world to go and get a knife, a cheap knife, and find Jews and kill them. And they also combine this with a prophecy that Muslims around the world mostly believe in, which is currently mentioned abundantly on social media. You can look for it, you can search it, you can find it everywhere. I posted some references on my own page here. You can find this prophecy according to which Muhammad is supposed to have said that the hour will not come until the Muslims will fight the Jews and kill them, and the Jews will hide behind trees and stones, except for one tree called the Garga tree, because it is the tree of the Jews. And there is this conspiracy going on by Muslims right now that Israel is planting that tree everywhere, and that soon the day will come and they will fight and all of that. So there is an aspect here that people often don't talk about it, that is actually very crucial to the whole conflict, which is that the Muslim world and the Arab world is united by their Islamic their Islamic sentiment of eventually fighting and killing the Jews and taking that land back. And all the other conflicts where Muslims are involved around the world are not nearly as important as that one. That one is very crucial. I grew up with that. Lots of us grew up with that.
I mean, I
Thank
can
you.
literally disagree with all of that because, like, turning this into some religious war, just like I told you who that other day, what you said Muslims believe, I think you should say some Muslims maybe, because not all of us believe the same things and the same
I would
books
agree with. I agree.
and
I
all
agree
that.
with
Because
Hadi, right?
the story you just said, well, I never ever heard of it. To be honest, I never learned it. I don't know anyone who spoke of it, this tree thing and whatever. But the sentiments in the region, don't forget that the most Muslims you hear, okay, there are some Muslims who claim it as a Muslim cause, whatever, but you see more Muslims debunking that and say, no, it's not a Muslim cause, and I'm one of them. And there's a lot of people who say it's not a Muslim cause and it has a lot of different aspects and it has nothing to do with that. But just generalizing all Muslims that they just want to kill the Jews and that's too much.
Yeah, I want to back up actually what Hadi said. I'm a Jewish person born in Israel. I mean, look, you can also find fringe elements on the Israeli right that have very strong religious beliefs. There are indeed some people who want to
Let me read a
see.
quote for you, Zev, and I'll let you finish. Like just I posted about this earlier. It goes both ways, but there's one here. Um, Let me just read it. So there's a rabbi. I mean, there's extremists on both sides, on all sides, in everything, in every religion, every war. But this one, I read things written by a military researcher who said that on the first day of the war on Gaza, there should have been 50,000 dead in Gaza. I think he is right. They should return all the prisoners. This is the language they understand, and if we provide them with water and electricity, we will help them prepare. For the next round of killing and massacre, we must instill terror and fear in the hearts of the people of Gaza. If they do not tremble at us, it will not be possible for us to live in the Gaza Strip, even in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. So it comes in from Chief Rabbi, don't know what his name is.
Yeah, no, I wanted to highlight that. So I actually agree with Hadi, right? I am somebody who, I'm a secular person, but I can absolutely find you far-right members of the Knesset in Israel, like Itamar Ben-Gvir and so forth, a lot of the religious factions there, which can interpret things. You know, there are people that actually believe about, although it's not mainstream Israeli policy, that talk about rebuilding the temple and so forth. So I do believe personally that Hamas has a problem with the Jews. That's my own personal belief. But I think, you know, Islam is not monolithic. And I just don't think it's actually a fair assessment to say that all Muslims believe that. I wouldn't even think that that's even a majority. Hadi is somebody who I absolutely disagree with politically, but I've never heard anyone in this room or in my entirety of Twitter or, to be perfectly
But
frank with you,
I
even.
have to clarify something here. I'm being misrepresented. I never said all Muslims. I never said any of that. I explicitly said that most Muslims or Muslims mostly believe in that. So I did not ever make the claim that this is about all
Right.
Muslims. And
But did you
I
use the
must
term
say,
did you use the term most?
yes, I did use most, and by that, and that is a fact. That's a fact.
Again, I can only just
Can I
very
say
briefly. I can
something?
only, yeah, just
Sorry.
one moment. I can only reveal, you know, I can only relate my own personal experiences as a young person who used to go into Gaza with their family wearing a Star of David. I've been to Lebanon on an American passport. I've been to Jordan. I've been to Egypt.
How was it
I've
going to
met.
Gaza? How was it going to Gaza with the Star of Egypt, with the Star
There was
on?
no problem. There was no, when I was young. Listen, I'm going to be very candid here. There was no problem. Like I would go there with the Star of David. I had a thicker accent than kifek marhaba. They knew right away I was Israeli. There was never a problem. We ate, we shopped. You know, we'd go to the beach, right? I would go to the beach with the Star of David, gold Star of David, sitting beside somebody with a crescent moon, or you know, the Palestinians were the full the map of Palestine, right? We would talk, never a problem, and that's many years. My father, same story, he would tell you. You'd be hard pressed to find an Israeli that would say anything different. So that I just, you know, I don't want to bring religion into this, but I don't like saying most people believe this, just as most Israelis do not agree with, uh, um, you know, most Israelis would, in the privacy of their own mind, potentially agree to a two-state solution. It's not monolithic, right? So I just wanted to finish with that.
Okay,
I really don't think.
may I
Yeah, of course.
explain?
So just 2 seconds, guys. So Reuters put out a piece saying Israeli military experts saying the following: the slow incursion into Gaza aims to keep the door open for detainee negotiations. Fascinating. I do want to get our hostage, the hostage negotiator that we've had on stage, but it's an interesting point from a military perspective that the reason the incursion is slow is not because there's fears that a quick incursion could lead to a lot of casualties on the Israeli side, which is still I think it's a logical explanation, but just to keep the door open for hostage negotiations. But I just don't understand how hostage negotiations could take place if the goal of Israel is to destroy Hamas.
But Mario, it's really important to note that, right? Whatever hostage negotiations that may be ongoing, the public is not going to know about them. They are literally secret by nature. So all of these leaks, I take them with a grain of salt, as I take any leak coming from any defense establishment official or any newspaper.
And it's not only
No, but we
that.
know that
It's
we
not
already
only
know
that.
actually
Just a second.
they're not
Just
leaks. They're people who are involved in the negotiations. So at the moment, it's women and children in a prisoner swap that is on the table, but it's not the combatants on the Hamas
Yeah.
side. But you,
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't like Hamas, but like I really don't like them. But in the past, they have held to the prison swaps and the agreements, and they have held to their part with ceasefires. So I mean that's one thing to bear in mind, but they are ongoing. It's still very much on the table.
And it's also a fact that every hostage negotiation is depending on the situation. So if you have military success in some areas, the negotiations will go one way, and if you have failures, they go that way. Any negotiation is negotiation between powers. So if you're feeling strong, you can push forward, or if you're feeling weak, you can push back. That's first of all. And second of all, and because I really need to drop, this my like third night of being awake, because it's night in Israel. One thing that somebody mentioned, that the first priority is hostage. The first priority is hostage. It's, I wouldn't say it's first priority. I think the first priority, and I think that's the most agreed upon here in Israel, is the security. Something that happened on October 7th is something that cannot happen again. So yes, hostage is important, negotiating, having the peace conversation, those are very important, but the Israeli population needs to be secured, and that point of security is the top priority, and I think this is a general consensus in Israel.
The security of Israelis is really important, but we've also got to consider, who will protect the Palestinians from Israel, and I think that's the hard part of it.
Can I make a quick point about security?
Yeah, well, hold on. There's somebody on stage that I wanted to speak to for his sites, and to just be, because Syria is involved here. But before I do that, and at the risk of sounding repetitive, I just want to make it crystal clear. I don't think that most, or a high 80% of Israelis and Jews feel that this is Islam versus Judaism. Syrian girl is someone who's in the audience who I vehemently disagree with every point she makes, because I'm right and she's wrong. But even her, she's never once said that this has anything to do with Jews, right? Or so. I just want to
May I
make that
clarify
clear.
on that? May I clarify on that stuff? So I have been analyzing, I've been researching Islam for a very long time. I was a very religious Muslim myself, spent a lot of time in the Muslim community, and I initially approached this whole topic from directly from the Islamic aspect to see to look at that side of it. I learned myself as a Sunni Muslim in a religious Muslim family, as most religious Muslims learn, that it is a prophecy by Muhammad, which is certain and certainly believed by Sunni Muslims around the world, that before the time comes for the war to end, Muslims will fight and exterminate the Jews. I know it's not pleasant to hear.
No,
I know it sounds very
I know, but
problematic.
okay. So what
Can I
percent?
speak
What
to the
percent?
Sunni?
But
But
Julian,
so
hold on. I think it's really clear, because we need to be very clear in a calm, collective manner. There's a lot of people listening, and I just don't want people to get the wrong idea. That is based on your, I guess, research, right? I mean, I am sure that there are absolutely people of the Islamic faith that believe in that, just as there are people of the Christian faith who are cheering on this war because they think it's going to bring Armageddon. Sorry, I'm a smoker. I'm coughing. There are Christians all over the world, especially in the United States, who are cheering on this war and supporting Israel because they believe that this is going to lead to the Armageddon, Har Megiddo, and the second coming, right? So I don't deny for a moment that there are absolutely people of the Islamic faith who believe in this. Before we use the term most, that would really need to be backed up with some very strong empirical evidence from a wide sample data. I think we could agree on that. I mean, Hadi, Hala, Habiba, Hoshar, all these other people who are in this room, I've had extensive conversations with them. I've never heard anything of the sort that anyone has said this is some end time prophecy. So I think we should just move away from religion. I would. Yeah.
I'm being cut off. I'm not meaning to. I'm not meaning to demonize people here. I'm just being cut off about something that I think is very crucial at the heart of this conflict, and that you can see all over the internet right now and all over the world right now. If you actually look at it, I just want to address it because I think that this is not being addressed, and I'm not saying that Muslims are evil or hateful or this and that. That's not the point at all. That's not what I'm doing here. And yes, the data that I'm talking about of most, that is actually backed up because that is a theological issue.
I don't mean to cut you off, and we're going to go to Daya here because I want to speak with this gentleman. But just as a survey, Hadi, Habiba, Hala, does this have anything to do with Judaism versus Islam or end time Islamic prophecy?
This is not a valid survey.
And can I add to what you have to say, Zev? As a Sunni Muslim, I make dua and I pray for the hostages to be released, and I pray that the people of Gaza don't have to suffer under these airstrikes. And I want peace for the Jewish people as much as I want that for the Palestinians. And I believe that Palestinians believe that too, and they're desperately trying to live in peace.
Yeah, and and so let's move away from religion. I do want to get to Daya, but just as no, just one moment. We're going to move away from this, but it's really important to get this out there clearly. I'm a Jewish person. I fall probably on the center right of Israeli politics. Never in my life have I ever been told directly or even indirectly that this has anything to do with end time Muslim prophecy. So I want to leave it at that because I think that's a very dangerous slope. And while I respect your opinion, I don't think that you speak for all Sunni Muslims because you have Sunni Muslims in here saying that they completely disavow that. So let's move on from that. Daya,
may I ask you one question without going any further in this? Just one question.
Yes.
Have you read the Hamas Charter 1988?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to. I want to get over this. Yes, I've read the Hamas Charter, but I've also read the charter of far-right Israeli politicians who view this as some type of religious war. Hamas is a different story. Okay, they are. I'm well aware of their rhetoric. I speak decent Arabic. I get it. Okay, but Hamas does not speak for anywhere near the majority of the Arab world. They don't speak for I don't believe for anyone in this space. So I'd like to leave it at that. Daya. Pleasure to have you.
One point on that.
I think we need to. No, I don't want to be rude, but we can come back to.
You made a lot of points. You've been taking. I just want to make one quick point.
Well, I'm the co-host, Brian. Brian, you can put your hand up. I'm the co-host. Daya has been waiting longer than you have to speak, so I'd like to go with him. Harvard Law, very impressive. Mr. Ulrich, please go ahead and chime in. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for accepting my request. First of all, I would like also to say hi to Hoshyar. I came to the United States in 2014. Hoshyar and I were participants in the program at Maxwell School.
Hi, my friend.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm glad to hear from you.
Habibi. So I'm originally from Syria. I came here 2014. I lived the war myself, not my sister, not my grandma, not my granddad. I was in Syria on the ground until 2014. I was a lawyer. I worked as an attorney for like 2 years. I focused on real estate, but I was as a student consulting for the Syrian government. So I know the Syrian government from within. I worked for them for 8 years. My family was in hardship. My mother was a divorcee, and I had to work to sustain myself. So the entire scope of the Syrian life and the actors I experienced when I went to Turkey. I worked closely with the opposition. I participated in the very first protest in Homs, where the person kicked the and destroyed the image of Hafiz al-Assad, very well known, iconic photo that marked the start of the Syrian revolution. I am from Bab Sba. If you Google it, it's the stronghold of the Syrian opposition in Homs. It saddens me actually to hear today people talking about Syria in abstract as if it were like an academic topic. And I'm talking like this as an academic. I myself write about law of armed conflict. I write about government and governmentality and the role of non-state actor. But we have to keep in mind that our words have real life implications on the ground. So take, for example, when we started protesting in Syria, a few Syrians, well-intentioned Syrians, started calling for arming the opposition, imposing non-fly zone. Bashar al-Assad was using that as a pretext. See, these are the traitors. They are calling for invasion. Let's arrest them. And I'm not naive to say that Bashar al-Assad wanted a pretext, but at least they delegitimized our demands in the eyes of his base. So we couldn't reach out to his base and we couldn't create collaboration, cooperation on the ground to build a state. And we have to be humble enough to understand that our words have real life implications. Wars happen not in movie theaters, not in Hollywood. They happen actually in real life, and people get influenced. I myself lost a father that was executed by ISIS. So that being said, I would like to tell you that it's not the economic sanctions that destroyed Syria. To the Syrian girl, okay? You had a massive corruption in the government. I worked with the government at highest level. You had a massive corruption in the government. Do you think today the five sectors that are regulated through the Caesar Act, do you think any of them, if today is lifted, will benefit any Syrian whatsoever? No. The answer is no, because oil was for al-Assad family for 40 years. Heavy industry is exclusive by the house of Shalish and the house of Makhlouf, and we know that this is inclusive industry. You cannot run a heavy industry without collaborating or cooperating with these people. They take from you a tax, you know? It's not even a tax, it's like a penalty for starting a business. If you say military jets, it's owned by Rami Makhlouf. If you say cell phone and communication, now is owned by Asma al-Assad. So tell me, honestly, if I lift the sanction today on Syria, how many Syrian folks will be like really benefiting from that? None. The answer is none. Second, reconstruction in Syria. Do you think now, if I lift the sanction today on Syria, all businessmen and women will just jump into Syria and start like pouring their billions of dollars in a country that is governed by corruption, tribalism, and bunch of families controlling the industry? This is just, I'm sorry, but this is so naive to make statement in front of like 10 or 20,000 people here today. This is really naive. It's not even an educated thing. It's counterfactual, it's baseless, and I'm sorry to hear that there are people making this argument in 21st century. Okay,
Guys, can we focus on the Palestinians?
Yeah,
Like
that's I was just about to say. So
there's
let's.
one child being killed every minute, right? Please
Yeah.
focus on
So
what's happening in Gaza.
But I was not here. Honestly, I didn't ask to participate to speak about one issue. But what triggered me personally, what she spoke about Syria, because I have family members right now in Syria. I was myself in Syria. I don't know where she is, her grandma, where she lives, but I can tell you I have no longer any friend in Homs who is still alive, okay? And I can assure you that these people are engineers, doctors, and none of them was
okay.
ISIS
So
member.
Can I answer
right.
quickly? Because
So
he directed a lot of attack.
okay. So hold on. Syrian girl, you were referenced. You absolutely have the right to respond. And I do want to get. I agree with Habiba for once. I want to get back to Israel and the Palestinian topic. So Syrian girl, very briefly, please go ahead.
Well, I come from Damascus, born in Damascus. I have a lot of family that were there, and also most of them are no longer alive or in Syria, just so you know. But before the war began, when I was in Syria, we had water and electricity, and now we don't. Every country in this world has corruption. If you don't think it exists in the West, you are completely naive. And the point is, the Americans have said themselves the sanctions are there to stop Syria from rebuilding. That is what they have said themselves. So I just think we have to go back to the Palestinian children, as Habiba said, 100%. Let's close this topic.
I agree. So that
By the way, last. I'm sorry, but just
No.
clarify.
I think I do want to move on, Dia, because I think you've spoken a lot. Syria, you'll respond in like 3 seconds. I think it's she's kind of concluded pretty quickly to go back to topic. I am seeing, and Joe, I'll get your thoughts. It's been relatively quiet. Actually, Joa, can you tell me the whole story? Let me get Ryan in, or Ryan's busy. The story of the hostage. Actually, it's too controversial to discuss now. I don't want the controversy. Forget it, Joa. Give us your thoughts on the conflict so far. We could wrap up because it's been pretty quiet. I don't want controversy now.
Are you sure you want me to speak then?
Yeah, actually, and I'm curious if anyone knows, and all our Palestinians are not here. If anyone's from Gaza or knows people in Gaza, I would love you to come up. A simple question might seem off, but what is the penalty for anyone that's my team's? I saw a message in the group that my team, that do the posts and agendas and stuff for the space. It was something about asking that. I don't know why they're asking that question. It was like, what is the penalty for anyone that's gay in Gaza? At least before the war. Now I'm sure they have bigger problems. Does anyone know what the penalty is?
They're judged by a
I have
military court.
kind of an idea. Habiba, if you want, you can.
Yeah, please.
I kind of have an idea.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to this question of, again, and Zev's going to disagree with me on this, but what Amnesty calls apartheid. So Palestinians are judged by military courts, where in Israel they're judged in civil courts. So there's unequal treatment within the courts themselves. There's no Arabic translator, it's done in Hebrew often. They're sentenced, no sort of right of reply because it's a military tribunal, so they get arrested there and then. This is completely aside from the LGBT issue. It's literally just unequal treatment before the law.
But are you allowed to be?
I will respond. I can respond to that, Mario, because when I was in the military, that's what I did. I helped people arrange people's safe passage. Back, years ago, the penalty was death. I don't know what it is now, but it was absolutely death, and it wasn't before court. It was sort of like extrajudicial killings. I can't speak to what it's like right now, but that is what it was in my day. Because sort of what I did was certain people who were at risk of being put to death, we helped them. I'll leave it at that. Go ahead.
Heidi, sorry, I couldn't unmute. Do you have more context on this, Heidi? Because anytime I ask,
actually, something happened just now that I think that might be worth discussing, which was Al-Quds Hospital has run out of fuel.
Yeah, I've posted about it. Yeah,
it
seems to be running out, but hasn't it run out? Haven't hospitals run out of fuel before? And I posted videos of them out, so I'm not sure who supplied them fuel before.
So the Palestinian Red Crescent have said that they were relying on donations from private citizens, and that's what's been keeping people going. So just a reminder that there are 12,000 people taking shelter, unarmed civilians in the hospital. And obviously everyone on incubators and things like that. I'm not sure if it's got an incubator unit, but I imagine everyone in intensive care who relies on it, people who need the electricity for the generators are suffering now. So just to remember that that's what's happening on the ground.
No, I appreciate mentioning that. I appreciate sending it to me earlier. I posted about it already.
Question?
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Zev, do you believe that if they turned over all the hostages and Hamas turned themselves in, that there would be peace?
Yes.
I have a very different opinion.
Well, Joa, you asked me a question. I've given you my opinion, right? You can't, if you want to state your opinion, that's fine. But I've answered your question. That's what I believe. Yes, turn themselves. I don't even think that you'd need to have Al-Hamas in jail, to be honest. I think that if they were agreed to release all the hostages, turn themselves in, specifically those who have blood on their hands, then you could arrange for an expulsion to a country that would take them.
Yeah,
but my answer is yes.
I think two things, guys. First, Heidi, I know you couldn't speak earlier. Do you want to answer that? My first question, and then John came in to answer Joa's question. Heidi, just on the homosexuality in Gaza, I think you wanted to answer on that one.
Yeah,
Heidi?
so I think I'm I don't have the right, of course, to speak for my friends and stuff because I have friends in the LGBTQ community in the Arab world and all that. But I get a lot of narrative from them. So basically, what I hear is that in Gaza is different from the ones in West Bank, of course, different than ones in Lebanon or Syria. But the ones in Gaza, they don't usually out it because there's a lot of things they should focus on more than their sexualities. But in general, as all conservative nations, of course, it's gonna be controversial and not accepted. But you don't.
Is it a death penalty?
No. I don't think there's a death penalty now on this because there were cases I think a few years ago, but that was like a friend family thing. He was kind of like exposed, but nothing happened to him. It was just like just be quiet about it, don't talk about it. That's all. But there was no death, nothing like that.
John, I want you to answer the other question, John, that Joe asked.
Right. I actually disagree with Zev. I mean, I agree, but I disagree on the particulars. So it would be I think that is one of the alternatives that is a very good question. If Hamas released all hostages, surrendered, and so if they just surrendered, I don't think that would be possible because there's still this immense military capability in Gaza that any Hamas 2.0 PJI alliance that could take up and use to conduct attacks on Israel. It would have to be a demilitarization, a disarmament of military capability.
Colonel. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Surrender is one thing, but no, the disarmament and 100%. Maybe I should have expanded, but no, I agree with you, sir. 100%.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean that is a logical and not an ahistorical situation exactly like this in the context of war. Again, not policing, not counterterrorism. This is war. This isn't in the context of counterterrorism.
John, go ahead, man. You can just unmute.
Yeah. Look, I've done a lot of digging, and Albert Einstein, who was Jewish and a Zionist, said once they wanted to create an Israeli state, that what would wind up resulting is akin to the Nazis. So what he stated was they would push out people, put them into camps, punish them, and create a state for only one race, right? People keep calling it the Jewish state. That is repeating supremacist rhetoric, that it's only for one people. While you have a state for only one people, you will always have war. You will always have conflict. Nowhere else in the world, except maybe North Korea, do you have a state for just one people. And that is the problem. Is it needs to be accepting, and it's not, and that is a big issue. And Einstein saw it back in the 40s that this is exactly what would happen. And
yeah, I mean that wasn't
giving up Hamas.
Oh, sorry.
I don't think giving up Hamas is going to fix it.
So that wasn't the question I was asked. It was in this context of nation state, which is nation sovereignty, and if like Syrian Girl and other people point out, Palestine is a state, the laws of war apply, and there are plenty of nation states who, like Iran, have the objective to strike other states. But again, we can't keep looking at this either through historical imaginations of something else. Israel is a state. Palestine
is a state?
Is it not part of Palestine? It's not Palestinian people?
I mean, it's occupied territory. I don't know if it's still considered a state. I mean, you tell me. I'm not sure.
I mean,
yeah. So I just want to point one thing out, Joe. So I'm familiar with the letter that you wrote. Who did Einstein bequeath all of his life works to when he died?
I don't know that.
The Hebrew University of Jerusalem. So your take on his notions of Zionism are completely off. I would absolutely encourage you to go do a little bit more research rather than a Wikipedia.
Don't discredit what I'm saying by simply stating.
No, listen. No, I'm going to discredit you. No, I'm going to. No, Joe.
Guys,
because you
one
are
back
wrong.
And forth, guys, back and forth, please.
Yeah, I'll speak first because his views changed later in life. When he died, he left all of his life's work to the University of Jerusalem. Right. So you need to go.
Jew, Zev. He was a proud
Jew.
Jew.
Okay, Joa. his views shifted later in life before his death. So you can't. And besides, because Albert Einstein had a specific view, there are lots of Jews in the world who don't agree with Israel. But what's your point? Like, you're bringing up Albert Einstein, and your note, I think it was yours, got community noted. So what? I just don't get it.
I didn't get community noted, but
Somebody did with the same
to
post.
the degree, I think it's rational, Zev. If you have, like, example, if you were to round up all the black people in the U.S., put them in one state, block it off, that would be a white supremacist movement. That's also what happened in Germany. You rounded up all the people who weren't Aryan and put into a camp, and you have a supremacist movement. In Israel, you round up all the Palestinians, you put them into a camp, that is a supremacist movement. When you say it is a Jewish state, that is a supremacist movement.
So first of all, I'm going to put. Okay, hold on, Joe.
You're
So,
interrupting me now. I didn't interrupt
well,
you.
I am interrupting you because no, I am going to interrupt you, and it's fun to have a little back and forth with you. At the end of the day, Israel was born out of a UN resolution, right? There were wars, people attacked, they lost. Okay, that there's nothing new about that, Joe. So you can claim.
You don't want to go where it starts, Ben. You really don't. You don't want to go to Herzl, who had 3 possible homelands for the Jews, which was Uganda, Argentina, or Israel, right? Do you really want to go back? Because I'm really.
Well, you're comparing the state of, listen, and you're referring to your own opinion, but you're literally comparing the state of Israel, which is the homeland of.
No, this is from the Jewish library, Ben. It's from the Jewish library.
Joa, listen, you're free to have your own opinions, right? That's fine, but you're literally comparing the state of Israel to a Nazi regime. I'm sure a lot of people in here do, but it's lunacy, right? What was Israel set up as? What was Israel set up as, and that was endorsed by the United Nations?
As the second largest military base in the Middle East. And that's why it was approved by the British.
No, what was it established as? What was it established as? What was it established as? The homeland of the Jews, right? After the Second World War. Right. Was it not established as the homeland of the Jews? No, Joa. Can you answer?
Let him answer. So Joa, answer. Joa, just answer, guys, please, back and forth. Joa, answer.
Answer. It's a simple question. Was Israel established for a homeland of the Jews in the wake of the Second World War and endorsed by the United Nations? Yes or no?
Homeland of the Aryans, is that supremacist? Just like homeland of the.
Then go take it up with the United Nations, Joa. Go take it up with the United Nations.
That's not the way it was supposed to be, Ben, and you know that.
Well, that is the way it was. It was.
No.
So the partition. Do you want to walk down? Oh God, Joa.
The British.
So the best thing to listen to on this would be
coming in.
I want to hear what Joa has to say. Can we listen to him?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. So do I.
Yeah, the British tried to stop all the immigration that was coming in. It was never supposed to be so many people coming in that would overrun and create conflict and then set up their own state. The British did not want that. Do you understand that? And then when there was military might and Israel's had that, then they decided, wait a minute, this could be the second largest military outside of Turkey in the Middle East. We could have a base from here and have a partner. And that's where all this started. Right? So
that's incorrect.
even the word Jewish
but that's not true.
Shows a supremacist notion.
Okay, was Israel it's a really simple question. You deflected by saying the Aryan, you tried to draw a parallel. Was Israel by the UN established as a homeland for the Jews after the Second World War? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Did other Arab countries attack us?
Did it start that way?
Did other Arab countries attack us immediately after the founding of the State of Israel? Joa, please, I listen to you. No, Joa. It's a simple question that you can't answer.
Guys,
if you ask me a question, I'm allowed to ask you a question.
Yeah, answer the question, then ask.
Go ahead.
Me on trial. Go ahead. I answered your question. Is Israel was it given by UN as the home of the Jewish people? I said yes. Now I get to ask you a question instead of me being on trial. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. You're not on trial, Joe. If you were on trial, I would have already convicted you, but go ahead.
Joe, you mean?
Okay. Yeah, I don't even remember my question anymore. He got me.
All right, guys. So I think on that point, you're not guilty yet. We'll have a discussion about it tomorrow. Look, guys, I think the news. I'm just going through the news. It has quieted down. There is movements in the West Bank. We saw where's Salfit? Salfit is the West Bank, isn't it? Yeah, west of Salfit. I'm guessing this is in the West Bank, unless Zev says no. There obviously airstrikes in Gaza don't stop, but they've been less frequent. We do have the electricity in Al-Quds hospitals out, the fuel's out. Really hope that they found a solution for this. Aid into the region is increased, which is a positive note. Jenin, there's more clashes, not clashes, but there's a lot of IDF forces entering Jenin. That was about an hour ago, but I haven't heard any clashes or anything there, so I didn't mention it. We obviously have the hostage issue. I'm going to be posting about the hostage that was, the hostage being beheaded. Seems to be gaining a lot of traction, so I asked my team to do a bit of research, and I'll be posting that out, trying to be as objective as possible. So make sure you check that tweet and give me the hate that everyone likes to give. And please let us know in the comments what you think of the discussion today. It's been a relatively quiet day, at least on the battlefield. But behind the scenes, there's been a lot of developments, which we've already discussed. So yeah, fingers crossed there'll be more positive developments tomorrow. I'm just really concerned on the Lebanese front with the evacuation of non-essential personnel from the U.S. embassy that was announced today, and then the meeting between the reports of the meeting between the Quds leader and Nasrallah. But I think this is it for today. We can end it a bit earlier than usual, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Hadi, Zev, any other quick comments?
No, nothing from my side. All calm here.
No, I think it was good. The last thing I will say, this is not a religious war. I just cannot stress that enough. This is not Islam versus Judaism. Very important.
Okay, I appreciate that. All right, everyone. Look, thank you very much for your time. We'll see you again tomorrow, and get some rest. Thank you, everyone. Bye.